Do we have the rainy triangles? Did someone remember it? No? Okay.
Demetrius, you owe me money.
Yeah.
I made a bet.
Yeah. She said that we have 96% probability of forgetting, but it's okay. It's okay. We will start, as always. You will stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up. Okay, you can leave the coffee because you will use your hands. Okay. So, leave the glass, you will need your hands. Okay, great. First, give a huge round of applause in order to warm the room. Come. Great.
Throw a
Super.
Whoop.
We're gonna play a very quick game, or I will pass the mic, and we want 2 truths and a lie from each one of you. But I want you to think fast, and the rest of the room will try to understand which is the lie and which is the truth. Let's start. Come on. Super fast. You can do it. Tell us 2 truths at least. Okay? I need to think it.
Okay, does this work?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 truths and 1 lie. So, first one, I've been in a room very close to Barack Obama. Second one, I've, how do I put this? I've been attacked by a shark when I was living in Fiji. And third one, I've been on a chase on the highway in the same car as a Austin PD officer.
Who are you?
Now you get to find a lie. Should I repeat?
No. Just give her a huge round of applause. I believed everything.
There is a lie in there.
There is a lie in there.
And there is 2 truths.
The shark or the Obama? Is huge bold.
What? Okay, raise your hand. Who of you think that I haven't been in a room with Barack Obama? Okay, who of you believe that I haven't been attacked by a shark?
Okay.
And which one of you think the last one? So I haven't been on a chase with a... So the lie was I haven't been attacked by a shark, thank God.
Okay. You are convincing. We have another volunteer.
I'm going to go to the back.
Come on. Or go deliberately and give it to someone.
I'll probably...
Okay, so 2 true information and 1 lie.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one, Frankfurt Airport is closed this morning. And the second one, today will be rainy day in Tallinn. And third one, from here I will travel to... Okay. Yeah. I'm not good at lies. I'm journalist. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. I will travel to Egypt. That's the third one.
Which one is the lie? The third one. Okay. Round of
Stay in
applause for his
journalism.
effort, though.
Go.
Round of applause. One more?
One more.
One more.
Someone... I see back then.
Ooh.
We have someone.
Okay, let's do this. 2 truths, one lie. I've been in a fist fight with a monkey. I have petted a crocodile, and I have hugged a tiger. Two truths. Crocodile. Wait, how many think the crocodile is a lie? How many think the tiger is a lie? And how many think the monkey is a lie? Okay, I think the consistency is good. The tiger is a lie. I hugged a baby elephant, not a tiger.
Akil, stop abusing animals.
Round of applause for yourselves. Thank you for being good sports. Before we get too far, we got to say good morning to our people online. Good morning to our viewers online. Thank you for joining us for day 2 of Anatomy of Influence. Today we're looking at spreading positive impact. Are you guys ready for the first one? Yes. Really? Yes. Okay, this side is ready. Are you guys ready for the first one? Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. All right, coming up first with a keynote on the influence of pop culture on disinformation. Ooh,
Yeah, make some noise. Make some noise.
Okay. Oh, we have a superstar. All right. The influence of pop culture on disinformation, populism, and cultural performances within digital communities. Gernot Wolfram, the Professor of Arts and Media Management at Macromedia University in Germany. Some more energy. Let's go. Round of applause.
Okay, we could go on with this party mood by showing you a short video at the beginning on YouTube. And perhaps you recognize who you will see in this video. I'm sure you'll perhaps know this guy. So. And now we have to play it. Just press here. Do we also have... Okay, we can stop here and go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Who is that nice old dancing granddaddy guy? Do you know who is that? Right, this is Prabowo Subianto. And he won the elections, what analysts say, due to his shows on TikTok with this special dance he did. But he's also famous for torturing and murdering people in the 1980s in Ost Timor for going against student activists. But most of his voters had been young people. We will see him in a second. So, and in this short video, you see actually my whole talk, yeah, the power of pop culture and how pop culture can make people let things forget. Yeah, and turn their mood or turn their thoughts in something completely different. So, but before we do that, perhaps a short word about myself. So my name is Gernot Wolfram. I'm working in Berlin and also in Switzerland and in Austria. And my research focus is on pop culture, populism, and third places implementation. And I'm working in Germany for a very interesting institution. It's called the Federal Agency for Civic Education. I'm an external lecturer over there. And you know, due to the history of Germany, Germany spends a lot of money. We talk about 90 million euros per year for civic education. Most of, or a big portion of the money goes into publication. There's also one of my publication, and you can get this also as a free download. So they try to give free access to civic education, to books, to data, to also international books, actually for free or for very low costs. And they're also following some principles. And I thought that could be interesting for you to put this at the beginning, because yesterday we spoke a lot about the others, yeah, about those who are spreading fake news, who are the evil ones, let's say. And at the BBP, at this federal agency, we also think very intensively about our role as experts. Yeah, so to whom do we speak? In which ways? Do we overwhelm people? And we are following some of these principles here, which is coming from the Beutelsbach consensus from the 1970s, but is a very still important guiding principle for the work at the BBP. Because if we ask ourselves here in the room, I'm quite sure that 99% of the people sitting here have studied or have a degree. If you ask yourself, you don't make the test here publicly, but I think most of you can afford perhaps also sometimes expensive food or going to a posh restaurants or whatsoever. And we should keep in mind that a lot of people who are consuming fake news coming from a completely different area, yeah? And if they see us, there is, before we have said anything, yeah, there's already a reaction. This is someone from there, from a privileged area of the society. And we should keep this in mind when we speak to people, and perhaps we need also more and new partners which can help us to give credible speeches in specific areas. I'll come back to this later. So, but now let's go back to Prabowo Subianto. And you see here, these are the TikTok figures he developed together with his young partner. And this is really fun, yeah? So these are comic figures, that's him, yeah? And he's showing himself as this nice, dancing, old granddaddy who takes care of the people, who loves Indonesia, who wants to do good things, and he wants to make people forget what is his past. Yeah, you see him over here, and you see here people standing in the graves of those people he killed. Yeah, and also you have a picture over here from his time in the military. And although it is very present in the serious media, it is present on CNN, it is present on Wikipedia, it's present everywhere, yeah? So the facts are very clear that this guy murdered people and went against people in a very brutal way. It's not important. Important is this feeling people have, especially the young generation, that he is this Gimoy, how they call it, and the fans call themselves the Gimoy squad, yeah? And one colleague from the Atma Jaya University said, I rarely see Prabowo's real picture anymore. Yeah? So in the mind of the people, there is this dancing granddaddy, which is now taking care for the country, right? And so you see perhaps that fact-checking is very much important, but facts are very weak when we compare them with these pictures people have in mind or coming through pop culture. So is this an example far away? I think not, because if we look to Germany, we see there is this new structure. You can really observe also in France or in other parts of the world, you have this politician, mostly men, yeah, older men with younger people on their side. Yeah, so for example, this was Maximilian Krah. He was the top candidate for the AfD. This is a right-wing party in Germany, or fascists, let's say. And he is very, very successful on TikTok. And this was his former employee. Also, now we know it's a spy from China. And for Maximilian Krah, that was obviously not a problem. He says he didn't know. But he shows himself very often with young women, and especially with a young team of men and women, so around 20, 24, yeah? And what he does, and that's quite smart, he gives them the allowance to put on TikTok what they think what would work. And therefore, he's one of the most successful TikTokers of the AfD on TikTok. So one of these videos he presented before the elections had been perceived as ridiculous. So all the quality media said, oh, come on, that's a joke, right? But they underestimated the very smart tactic you see over here. So it's just 30 seconds. And he is starting this TikTok video by saying, Every third man in our society had until now not a girlfriend in his life. There's of course no source for this, he's just proclaiming this. And then he turns his eyes to the viewers and he's saying, don't see pornography. Get out into fresh air, into nature. Don't elect the Green Party. Don't be soft and nice. Be a right-wing guy. Then you will get soon a girlfriend. Vote for the AfD. There's no logical bridge here, of course. Yeah, this totally irrational talk. But of course, it touches some very strong emotions in the generation of young men, so between 16 and 20, obviously. Therefore, it was so successful, right? So we can see it's not about an rational approach, it's about an irrational approach. Then you see perhaps this case, which became very famous in Germany. This is a bunch of young people, well educated, right? Students. He's working for a big marketing firm. And they're on a party on Sylt, which is a very expensive island in Germany. And they used this music by the DJ Agostino L'amour toujours, actually a nice party song so for dancing. And they integrated the lines Germany to the Germans, foreigners out, and they showed this Adolf Hitler gesture. Yeah. By the way, I have to admit this, I know the student from my university, so she also spent some time at my university. So, and that was a shock for a lot of people in Germany. These people had a very good education. They're smart, and I know, for example, she is a smart student. Of course, she's saying now she was drunk. But she was not just drunk, yeah? She was just following something which is fun, which gives you feelings of entertainment, yeah? So, and I have a question to you. Did you see yesterday in the hotel or anywhere else Reels, YouTube Shorts, memes, TikTok videos yesterday? Can you raise your hand? Who? Okay. Who spent more than 20 minutes seeing this stuff? Okay. 15? Okay. 10? Good. So, what do you remember? What would you say? What do you remember from all the reels you have seen? What is in your mind? What is it? The cat on the back of a dolphin, or what? That is it. Cool. Okay. Okay. Something else, please. Yeah. Okay, so there was also in a reel, yeah, or in a short video. Okay, so what we know from research is very interesting, that mostly we perhaps remember one thing, one aspect. What we spent approximately, young people spend 19 minutes in average on TikTok or on Instagram or other platforms, and actually we're not remembering anything. Yeah, just things, okay, the tank or the cat or you know, a dog which is crying or something like this. Yeah, but we spend so much time for something which actually doesn't give us any sustainable input. Yeah, and this is something where, of course, parents say that's cruel. On the other hand, why we are doing this every day? Because it gives us a kind of relief, right? So we can forget for 20 minutes because we know that we don't learn here anything. This is just, you know, a kick. It's like drinking Red Bull or whatsoever, and it is highly entertaining. So therefore, it's interesting to understand why has this anything to do with pop culture. The term actually appeared for the first time in the 19th century in the UK. And there it was a reaction of the uneducated people to the so-called upper class. Yeah, and so it started around 1830 that these kind of little comic and magazines appeared, and they had been called as penny dreadfuls or penny fiction because they only cost 1 penny, and it was about crime stories and love stories, and it was very cheap, you know, and it was affordable for the uneducated people. And here it's interesting to state, uneducated doesn't mean they're not smart. Yeah, uneducated means they didn't have the resources to go to universities or to take part. Yeah, and so this was also a reaction by saying this is our culture. And because we see it's entertaining for us, but also you are shocked that we read this, so the upper class is shocked. And we see that this culture of the masses, of course, has on the long run an impact on the so-called official culture. Yeah? And therefore pop culture is not only, let's say, the cheap stuff for the uneducated people, it is also always a symbol of resistance against patterns of privilege or patterns of being rich. Yeah? So, and we shouldn't forget that. This is a similar situation today, yeah? So that those people, we heard this yesterday from some of the speakers here, that even people know that they're listening to fakes. They say, I don't care. And this is not because they're stupid. This is also a power gesture, yeah? Because that shocks you. If I believe what someone, this lie, if someone's telling me, yeah, I was hugging a tiger, and I think, yeah, I believe that, and then you say it was a lie, and I say, but I don't care, I believe it, yeah? Then you are shocked. What kind of person is that? Why he's not embracing the truth? Because I know quite obviously that I can shock you with this statement, right? And so this is a power these people have who are spreading fake news. Do you know who this guy is? So the older ones here from the who had been young in the 1970s? There was Cool Clark or Cool Herc. This was a DJ who really mixed music from different genres, yeah, and so let's say the hour of birth for rap and hip hop and these things, and you know that this is about mixing different cultures, different styles, and so we can see this is also a very important aspect of pop culture. So, but then we should also take into consideration that we all consume pop culture every day. Think of any Hollywood movie of your choice you have seen in your life. And the interesting point is that all these movies, especially when they display something from the historical time, are absolutely inaccurate. Yeah? So when you see why Ridley Scott, this movie about Napoleon, it's a great movie. Yeah? It's very fun to see that, great pictures, but from a historical point of view, full of crap. Yeah? A lot of things never happened, or see the movie about Alexander the Great, or now Roland Emmerich on Amazon Prime with Those About to Die. This has nothing to do with the Roman Empire and the gladiators there. But we know that and we enjoy that. So what I want to say is we are all accepting this characteristic of pop culture, that it is irrational, that it is not displaying facts. But we think, as the educated people, okay, so what we can put this in the right box, right? Well, we shouldn't forget that how many time we spend in front of Netflix and Amazon Prime and Sky and all these channels, and we're accepting this kind of pop culture and we enjoy it, yeah? But we have a problem in that moment when it goes to another level, like we have seen in this very fascinating speech by Ashton yesterday, yeah? When the games turn into something very shocking and show extreme positions. And there's another thing we should keep in mind. What I learned in my university times was that truth actually doesn't exist. Yeah, we read these books by Foucault, Deleuze, Derrida, and you remember, if you have ever studied social science, yeah, that these texts are quite complicated. By the end of the day, this whole debate and discourse about structuralism is that actually truth is also a kind of a construction. Yeah, so the reality is a kind of a construction. Yeah? Everything is created through language, through spaces, and so on. And this very interesting philosopher, Asa Wigforss, says in her book about fake news that we should see this tension that now, where the right-wing guys and the populists take exactly this kind of narrative, yeah, that everything it's not so clear what are facts and what are not facts, we start to be shocked and we say, oh, fact-checking, yeah, and we have to look on the truth, yeah, and she's saying that's a bit of kind of a problem that for many years, yeah, where we had these discourses on the left-wing progressive side, let's say, yeah, we embrace this kind of uncertainty, yeah, but now where we see that the extremists take exactly these kind of arguments and they're strategically using left-wing arguments, left-wing philosophy, we're starting to be a bit shocked, right? So therefore, perhaps we cannot make it too easy by saying, okay, here are the liars and we are the fact checkers, yeah? That's perhaps not complex enough and not displaying the reality of all of our lives, yeah? Therefore, I think that pop culture is the main area of triggering emotions about political issues, using stories, pictures, emotions, and narratives from a fragmentized set of media and media formats. Therefore, is media literacy dependent on the knowledge and understanding of these pop cultural and post-structural tactics and strategies. So that's important that we teach in the field of civic education the strategies, yeah, that we make clear how does it work, yeah, that they make this semantical reloading, right? And we have another dilemma. This is called the input-output dilemma. We also had this talk with some of my dear colleagues here. So what is actually the output of this conference? What is the output of workshops? What can we take home with us? Yeah, and we see that when we look on data, that a lot of people expect right now there must be a quick output. Yeah. So in not only in the field of fake news, also when we talk about climate change, when we talk about radicalism, when we talk about war, yeah? So a lot of people expect from politics, from society, from us as experts, give me a solution and give me a quick output that we can solve the existing problems. But input is perhaps not prior. But we have always to reflect, okay, what kind of input do we have to give that we have a specific kind of output? This is the input-output dilemma. Yeah, we cannot think, for example, if we look on this debate with fake news, we are consuming specific products and media products, and we enjoy them, even if they are showing violence and they are radical and so on. But we expect that the uneducated, please, yeah, they shall consume different stuff because they are not able to reflect what they see. That's the third person effect, right? So therefore we have to reflect this. And then when we look on the directions of civic education, then you can see that this is a list of things we also heard yesterday and which are very important. So don't get me wrong here. It's very important that we have fact-checking, analysis, educational actions, debunking, pre-bunking, media interventions, data analysis. But perhaps do you see here any common features in this list? Is there a common feature? What would you say? What is? Yeah. Also look on this book, Transformative Civic Education in Democratic Societies, and then I see this typical university with the Greek columns, you know, and then you know on which level we are. So these are rational approaches altogether, and they're good for us, but perhaps we are not the problem. Yeah, perhaps we are not the main target group. So, and therefore, this guy from Germany here, Dieter Claessens, wrote this book, The Concrete and the Abstract, and he is saying we are living with this analytical myth, yeah, that we believe we can solve problem just by debating it rationally, yeah, and find rational solutions. And this is surely true, but he's saying if we look on the whole history of philosophy and sociology in the 20th century, for example, on the work of Karl Mannheim, then he was saying that the relationship between the irrational and the rational structure of modern constitutional societies is one of the most important issues of all, yeah? So it's interesting perhaps to read the classics like Karl Mannheim once again, and because they had to fight with bigger problems. If you think of the Nazi regime in the 20th century, and these had been mostly Jewish philosophers who really felt at an early point how dangerous this development will become. And they said, if you are not understanding this relationship between the irrational and the rational factors, we have a problem. So I have to come, I don't have too much time, unfortunately. And I sat yesterday in my hotel room and I felt a bit of pressure by saying, oh, positive signals. Yeah? I thought, oh God, when I look through my presentation, this is actually also a very critical analysis and is a lot of, you know, input in that sense, what is going wrong and what is the problem. And I think we also heard this by Ashton, by others, that pop culture is very dominant in games, in movies, in music. Yeah, people enjoy that. And we see it's very easy to abuse these kind of media products and turn them into something else and turn them into propaganda. So what can we do? And then I remember that my other part of research is the third space and third place implementation. I guess you are familiar with this concept of third places. These are places, the first place is your home, the second place is the workplace, and the third place is where you live your public life. So, and what has this to do with pop culture? I hope I can explain that. Ray Oldenburg, who brought this theory into the public debate in the year 1989, said that third places are an embryo of democracy. He is saying that these places, this can be very small places. Richard, for example, told me about Portugal, where they have these kiosks where they sell now in the morning coffee, and the people sit there and talk and chat. That is very important, because here people start to do what we would think is a positive thing for democracies. They exchange different opinions. Yeah. Also, what Rita has said yesterday was very fascinating to me. That if you're just following all the time the same algorithms, then perhaps one solution can be that you should be confronted with other material. Yeah. And this is what you do when you come to a third place. Then you find someone who is perhaps saying, don't give me that kind of information, I don't want to hear this hate speech, let's talk about something else, about sports or whatsoever. So there is not, at a good third place, there's not just the same people telling the same stuff, there are people telling different things. So, and we look now on pop culture, then I brought for you an example from Berlin. What they did, you know, Berlin is famous for the electronic music clubs, especially Berghain, but this is not any longer the most famous one. There are new ones. You see here is the metro system in Berlin, and they just lead you to all these clubs. And what they did is, because they also faced hate speeches and you know, violence against women and men as well, and they gave themselves a kind of a code of conduct. And this is called Zukunft feiern in German. It's translated celebrating the future, yeah, or let's be the future a party. Yeah, so it's a very positive line, and if you go on this website, then you find some rules, yeah, some regulations. That's the way what we expect from you to have fun in Berlin, in the clubs of Berlin, yeah, and that works actually quite well. So we also see, for example, that we have places like this one where you are connected to digital spheres, where you can find other people, where you can rest, yeah. And also here, what I liked here, this was a project in Halle. This is very, a city with some problematic areas, and there some cultural scientists and cultural managers went, and they said to the people, can you not pimp up your balcony? Yeah, can you change and turn your balcony in something else? And then the people started to talk with each other. I want to have it for my wedding. The other one wanted to do something, you know, well, like you see here, kind of a decoration. And so the whole people in this house and in this building started to speak to each other. And we have in Germany, as a very fascinating example, the libraries. Yeah, for example, you see here the Library of the Year. So there was a prize 2023 in Düsseldorf. They have 1.3 million visitors per year. I mean, think how difficult it is for us to reach these number of people. And these are people from all angles of the society, yeah, coming to this library. People with a migrant biography, students, people who are unemployed, yeah, and they sit there, and most of them are not lending books. They're just sitting, chatting, scrolling through the internet. And the director of this library told me the biggest challenge is to put more plugins on the wall, because they're coming more and more people, yeah. And you see also they have an open library concept. That means they give you the keys. Even if you don't have the stuff, you can get the keys, and then you can sit there overnight, yeah, or at least very late. And this is actually exactly what we would like to do in a democracy, right? That people coming from different angles talk to each other. So now you can ask me, what has this to do with the digital sphere we are talking about? Wait. Oh, where is this? I hope I didn't. Yeah, here. And you're familiar with this concept of digital twins, right, of institutions. And we see a lot of digital twins also, for example, in Salzburg. The theater in Salzburg has now a digital twin. So the whole theater is recopied or as a copy online. And that's great. But perhaps we also, and this is my last point here, we can think about why we don't have also analog twins. Yeah? So why we are not creating more spaces where people can learn and exchange about the things they do in the internet. So not to separate the analog world from the digital world, but we can see also in the libraries that people mostly don't want to talk. They're online, they're doing their jobs. But then they go to a coffee or they see other people. And to be honest, and we have also studies about that, in that moment where, for example, you hate against foreigners all the time and you say, I don't like, the refugees here, or I don't like the guys from Afghanistan or from Eritrea in my town, and I see them, the young men hanging around. And in that moment where perhaps someone from Eritrea is sitting beside you in the library, and someone from Afghanistan, or you hear stories from refugees, then perhaps it is a bit more difficult to spread the hate in the internet, right? So what I want to say is we should go into this direction that we see pop culture also is always about communication, is always about entertainment, is about relief, yeah? And these feelings, yeah, are positive feelings. And we should not let people be, let's say, contaminated or just affected by those guys who are spreading the fake news. We also should invest into social places where the digital sphere and the analog or physical sphere can encounter. And my last point is, I love this term realistic optimism. That comes actually from psychology when we talk about resilience. And you find this term also, for example, in Finland or in parts of Greece, yeah, that in that moment where we can see where people, even in a crisis, are confronted with a positive story, where they see options for their future, where they can exchange with other people, like we do it here, yeah? That gives you a spark, that gives you an inspiration, that gives you this kind of realistic optimism. It doesn't mean that I think, there's a bright future coming up, no. But perhaps you feel inspired in that sense that it is realistic to be optimistic, yeah? And if you look on the elections in Finland, for example, European elections, yeah, is one of the rare countries where they didn't vote for the extreme right-wing parties. So obviously we can learn from these examples something very valuable. And here you have some more information and my contact, and perhaps we have still time for a question. Thank you so much for your attention.
We are going directly to the next panel because
That was too long.
exactly, just 15 minutes. I will charge you in the end, it's okay. So now we have a very interesting panel about technology, civil society, and the political participation. Moderator is Diana Filmon from DCN. A huge round of applause for Diana.
Thank you. And for the sake of being fair, Gerno started a little bit late because we were a little bit late, but I hope you catch him in the coffee break for questions, because the first time I saw him as a speaker was a few months ago in Berlin, and some things he said are still haunting me, so I hope that something he said today will still haunt you, and in a good way. And now we move on to a very broad title of a discussion, but that gives us the opportunity to talk a lot about our personal experiences as professionals. So civil society, technology, democracy, these buzzwords. Let's see how they can connect. And I will invite on the stage and on the fancy chairs my colleagues from the panel, Ora, Akil, and Michael, wherever you are, come. And I hope I hope you will jump in as much as you want in the discussion. So the idea is that we don't want to be a series of monologues. We want it to be a discussion with you guys. So we'll do our best to make it as a safe space for you to jump in the conversation. And we will start by briefly saying a few words about ourselves and what puts us on this stage. And it's the perfect, let's say, continuation after Gernot's presentation, because I started as a civic NGO person 7.5 years ago. I created an NGO in Romania from scratch. I literally Googled how to make a civic NGO and how to fund a civic NGO. The second part, yeah, it's still a struggle, but yeah, we can talk over coffee about that. And I went a lot around Romania, in small countries, small cities. I didn't have my second coffee, sorry. At the small cities in small villages, and talking to young people, because they are the focus of my work. And whenever I would talk to them, I would do media literacy, I would use history as a tool for civic education, but basically what I wanted is to awake them as part of the communities that they were living in, because I felt like in the protests that we had in Romania before, the average age was way over 30. And we felt like we were fighting on our own for the democracy, and that scared us a lot. And it also, what we saw from Indonesia and from many, many other places, the scary part is that, yes, young people vote in large numbers for extreme parties. And it's something we should worry and focus and work on together. And in these workshops that I did, I discovered that I was very often the source of misinformation or disinformation for them, because I would give them some examples, like, have you heard about this fake news? And they would be, no, I haven't. Where is it? And I was like, yeah, on Facebook and on TV and on weird websites which you don't go to. And then that's how a new idea came, like I should be the one who would facilitate them learning more about the correct things that happen, the facts that happen around the world. And that's how we created the Youth Media Project almost 3 years ago, and which manages now to create a safe space in a way, sometimes a very dangerous space, but sometimes a safe space in the comments and in the community that we managed to grow around us, because young people are discussing about what's happening around the world. And by young people, I say over 3 million every month. Who are reached by our news and by the content that my colleagues, who are all under 25 years old, are creating. And we said, okay, this works, and together with DCN, we created a Central Eastern European chapter, and we have some big plans in the future to go to other parts of the world. But what I meant to say about this story is that all our projects now are covering different types of people. We have followers who are far-right believers. We have followers who are far-left believers. And they find a common space where they can discuss things. And I think that's the best thing we can do, because just to talk among each other and say how amazing we all are and how progressive we all are, what's the point? Like, it's just a bubble disconnected in a certain percent from the society. And on this optimistic point, I will move on to give this floor to my colleagues on the stage to say a few words about their work, what brings them here, and then to try to understand what is technology helping us, is it not helping us, and how can we use it, and what's our experience on it. But first, a few words about yourself, Ora.
We can start with a Q. No? So my name is Ora Kawanzaroa. I am Zimbabwean. I am African. I am what they call a daughter of the soil. That's what we call it. I work as I've recently discovered is called a multi-potentialite. So I work across many spaces in many fields. The common goal being trying to find solutions for impossible problems. My passion is in education and knowledge management. Education, especially from a very young age. So from what Americans would call K-12, primary school, kindergarten. I love the babies. So up until about teenagers, and then maybe a few university students. But teenagers, I'm a little bit scared of them. Um, but that's my space of passion, knowledge management, specifically leaning a lot into culture, Ubuntu as a system of managing knowledge, of bringing communities together, but also working in global spaces, and that was introduced through DCN Global, where I now host the DCN Africa podcast, where we talk about what's happening in Africa in terms of digital trends. But I think the common thread amongst all of that is in realizing that apart from being an African, I'm also part of a global system and a global citizen. I've realized that we have a lot more in common than we think, and that continuously drives me to try to connect with people, both children and older, beyond culture, beyond this, our skin color, and try to find common ground. So that drives every single thing I do, no matter whether I'm working behind a bar or whether I'm teaching in a classroom or whether I'm singing on stage. It's always about connecting.
That was a really good introduction, and I hope I can follow that. So, my name is Michael Ogia. I'm Lebanese American living in Belgrade, and I'm a bit like Aura in that I'm also I have way too many interests across way too many things. But the thing that unites them all, I would say, is technology, is digital. So I created my own consultancy firm, which is just a really fancy way of saying I work for myself, and I basically work across many different elements, including digital infrastructure, IT sustainability, cyber resilience. These are all a bunch of big buzzwords to say that I really care a lot about technology, about digital technology, and the future of it as well. I have worked across policy, infrastructure, media development is another big thing that I've spent a lot of time on, and I've lived kind of all over the world. I've lived in the US, in Lebanon, in India, Turkey, and now in the Balkans. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is how infrastructure at the moment is contributing a lot to geopolitics. We'll get into that, but thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Akil. I'll try to follow that introduction. I really love that. I'm a global citizen with European and Asian Sri Lankan roots, based in Germany and born and raised in Germany. I do work for Doctors Without Borders at the moment. I lead tech partnerships or relationships with big tech companies. And throughout my career, I have been working on the intersection basically between digital technology, mostly digital communications, and the humanitarian or impact sector. Previously, I worked, for example, for Deloitte Digital, GIZ, the German Development Corporation, but also my last station before Doctors Without Borders was Meta at Facebook. I led the largest community leaders program for Facebook, and I was always trying to work at that intersection of being able to achieve something bigger, to motivate people to do something, ideally something good with digital technology, with digital communications. I really love that you also jumped into like your passion. I tried to come up with a catchy slogan, and my passion is to building communities and breaking borders in many meaning of those senses. And yeah, I'm really excited about today's panel, and I want to follow up on the previous speaker because I really love that. I do consider myself a realistic optimist, and we can get into that when it comes to technology, where we see the potential and the risks.
Thank you so much. So moving to the first point of discussion, and please remember you can raise your hand whenever you want to jump in. But first I will move to my colleagues here. We use technology in my work, technology, digital space. It's what helps us build communities, keep people informed, try to push people to go out to vote in whatever they believe. And we never judge young people for, oh, you're staying too much on social media. Because if you're there, okay, we will be there. If you will move from social media, we will move from social media with you. So our philosophy is we are not an Instagram-based or a TikTok-based project. We are a youth-based project. And wherever they are, we will follow. So for me, technology gives us the opportunity to reach unimaginable numbers. I want to know from you, and especially from your experience in Doctors Without Borders, does it help for you? Did it help you in your work? And especially because you have come from a background, a very heavy background in social media with a lot of experience. How was it for you to see technology being, I don't know, meddled into in a good way into such an important work like the organization you're now with?
Maybe let's take one step before that, and because I don't speak on behalf of Doctors Without Borders, like same as the colleagues yesterday did not speak on behalf of the US government. I speak of my own views that are shaped by, of course, my work at Doctors Without Borders, but also Meta and all the previous experiences. One of the previous experiences that I wanted to share, and we were asked to share real examples that you can also all follow. I believe I've shared this previously in DCN, was a project called Vote Swiper. It's basically a Tinder for elections. It's a really cool tool that follows a model that is popular in the Netherlands, in Germany, and now it is becoming more and more popular across the world. I helped that project reach more European audiences. And basically what it does is using technology and using tools that young people are used to inform them about elections. Because the project believes that the more people that are informed, and if you make an informed choice, the more likely you actually are to show up at an election. And the first time we tried this app, it reached 500,000 people in Germany. So it was quite heavily downloaded. And how it works is the organization sends out with a bunch of volunteers, and you can do that in your own countries. I highly encourage you to do that. A questionnaire to all the parties that are running or all the candidates. They answer all the questions, and then those questions are put into basically that system that is an app where you can literally swipe, do you agree with this statement or do you disagree? And based on that, you get a percentage of how high likely are you to agree with one or the other party or the candidate. And I think it's a brilliant way. And then if you want more information, you can just click and you can see actually the reasons that the politicians and the parties gave to answer. So I think that is a very concrete example how technology is helping democracy. And now jumping into my work of how I see kind of technology really being helpful on the ground at Doctors Without Borders. We are, of course, we work in the entire environment that you all are experiencing, that we're all working on. And one of the highlights that I always want to put in people's minds is organizations that are humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross, but also Doctors Without Borders, MSF. We don't usually have security teams. Our whole security is our reputation as a neutral, truly neutral, impartial organization. What does that mean in a world that is heavily polarized, where people always want to draw you on the one or the other side? It means that disinformation in the online space is a real target to the security. Because once organization, a person tries to push an impartial organization to one side, one side of the actor, and in our case it will be an actor of warfare, will not believe you anymore and will try to shoot you. While before, wearing your t-shirt was the only security that you had. And of course the bilateral agreement with all the parties of war. So there's a real consequence, but that also means all of our work on social media, in informing people locally as well, like without technology, but also with technology, with social media, to inform people about our stances, that we're impartial, that we help everyone, that we truly follow what should be a human aspect of treating everyone who's in need. It's very important on the positive side, but it can also be drawn on the negative side.
And before moving on to Michael, I would like to ask you, which of you are optimist about technology and democracy, its connection to democracy? Okay. And who is pessimist about the connection between technology and democracy? A lot of young people in the back, and the other ones are not decided, okay. So we have a few optimists. Let's see what Michael says.
Well, feel free to join me on the pessimism side, because I would not call myself an optimist. A very quick point, though, as I mentioned to somebody earlier this week, I would call myself a positive pessimist, and these are not contradictory terms. Pessimism is that, yeah, things are getting worse, and I think that very, very significantly. However, positivity is that, well, it could always be even worse than what it currently is. And so I see, if we're looking at, well, what is the impact of technology today and on us, and how do we go from here? On the one hand, technology has certainly had many positive benefits, especially for individuals in the global south, across developing economies. A really good example of this, and I hope I'm not stealing this, if you wanted to mention this, was M-Pesa in Kenya and in East Africa. This is a mobile banking application. It connected so many East Africans to mobile banking applications. It's helped farmers. It's helped numerous individuals with accessing not just banking as a whole, but really just this entire system of connecting to their their offline goods to online people. So that, for instance, has been a positive development. But I can't, in good faith, look at especially the way that technology is influencing democracy today and say, yeah, everything is great. It's not. And I think a big part of that is that we are all essentially beholden to the algorithm. And it's like, I feel very strongly like there is an assault on the nature of our realities. And what is it? And if it's bad now, I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 20 years, or rather, maybe I don't want to, because I think we're going to be experiencing a very difficult world to parse in terms of what is real and what is not. I think it's already tough now. With that said, there was one more thing that I wanted to mention just in this opening, which is that technology. First of all, when we're talking about digital technology, what do we mean? Do we mean AI? Do we mean subsea internet cables? Do we mean something else? I mean, the internet is a bunch of technologies that are all built on each other. And just like fire, which can be used to cook our food or can at the same time burn down our home, we have to take as much of a neutral approach to technology as possible to understand, well, how are we using this? How is it being used against us? And who is behind the influence that our attention is being diverted to? Who is gaining from that? I think that those are really important questions to kind of help us dissect this anatomy of influence that we're working on.
Thank you so much. And to add on this, I would say that, for example, we also experienced in Romania, but not just in Romania, that we would, as a resistant movement sometime against the corrupt government, we would invent some trends, we would breach a little bit the limits of the usage of technology for democracy, and then in the next round of elections, the guys we are fighting against would take exact same tools, use them against us, and we would be like a step back, and we have to reinvent again something to work on, and you feel like it's constantly like a struggle against clock to use technology in the good way, so the other guys will not use it in a bad way. And Ora, how do you feel like technology is helping you or fighting against you?
I think one thing I've picked up is that the development of technology and influence of technology and digital tools is not linear. It's very contextual. And in the context of Zimbabwe, or rather the global, Africa in particular, which is huge, it's 54 countries. It's very hard to speak on behalf of 54 countries. So I say very, very loosely, right? I speak Africa, Zimbabwe, and my own perspective of where I've traveled within the continent. Infrastructural development plays a huge role in how technology evolves. So for example, things like M-Pesa in Zimbabwe, we have like what's called EcoCash, Telecash. These things, this mobile banking system, primarily didn't actually even start as an app. They started as USSD codes. So you find that, technology in some, technological advancement in some cases is not necessarily AI or new apps. It's an efficient way of using a digital tool that works for that person. So if I don't have access to steady internet, I can still use a USSD code to bank to complete certain tasks. What is USSD code? Wow. I did not think that through. So a USSD code is *123#. And then you press it and you get like a list of menu options, right? So we use a lot of that in Zimbabwe, right? So if you want to bank, if you want to buy mobile data, not everyone has a credit card, for example, in my country, right? So you can't like pay online. So we rely very heavily on this more traditional format of being able to connect to an online service. Another thing I noticed was, especially in COVID, during the period of the pandemic, there's a saying that says, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked, right? So when COVID happened and suddenly we couldn't do a lot of things manually and in person, that's when it became really obvious how huge the technological advancements or development gap was in Zimbabwe and in Africa in general. And we were forced very quickly to catch up. And I'll use education as an example because that's my space. I started investing very hands-on in education during COVID. I joined a school, very old, 1947 is when it was established, and it was a very traditional community school. COVID happened and people started online talking about, oh, distance learning, it's not a problem, we can still do classrooms and Zoom. Now, I had a school where I think only 10% of my parents had a smartphone. And if they did have an advanced smartphone, some had smartphones, but they could only do WhatsApp, right? So we thought, how do we do distance learning when we don't have Zoom? We don't have access to, really strong internet. Not everyone has Wi-Fi. The cost of data is incredibly high. And it forced us to innovate and, try to find hybrid solutions. So that's kind of how I've seen. I think technology is really great. The young people are finding their voice. We had Dr. Sam come out, tell us about how Gen Z Kenyans are going above and beyond using digital tools as means to protest. So I think post-COVID, we're seeing a lot more adoption of digital tools to make an active change within your community and within your society. But again, it's not linear and it's very contextual.
So, yeah, please.
I would love to respond to both of you because I think it's a perfect combination. I first of all heavily disagree with the pessimistic side. Because I'm a realistic optimist, I can highly recommend you a book which is called Factfulness by Hans Rösling. One of my favorite professors and institute that does the research is called Gapminder. They do amazing work of showing you why we are wrong about that the world is getting worse, but the world is actually getting better. The world is getting better on a number of indicators that you can measure, and you can measure it throughout basically the last 200 years and even beyond that, and it's gotten better. On a couple of measures, it's getting worse, and we need to address that and look at it, but I'm very optimistic about that. And talking about the example that Aura just shared on when you have a low resource region where you don't have access to online world or high technology yet, as part of my work at Doctors Without Borders, I get approached also by a lot of big tech companies about like innovative approaches of how to reach last mile regions, users. And I will not name the company now, but it was a project that we haven't started yet, but it makes me hopeful, which was using tools like generative AI that we heard about, and applying that in a low resource setting, which means actually people can, for example, send text messages or even call to a specific data point, and that data point transfers it to ChatGPT or whatever generative AI tool you want to use. That decodes it and automatically sends back either text messages or even calls that person, translated with another AI tool into the local language that even ChatGPT didn't know, but it was later translated with another. So there are ways of technology now in combining the force of combination, and that's why I also love like whenever a lot of people meet in the same room who are so interdisciplinary, bringing all of these different disciplines together, we can make the best use of all the tools. And people like Aura just shared, getting creative, getting innovative to make the best of our world, and that's why I'm hopeful.
So before I want to launch a challenge to all the room, I will tell you a short story inspired by what my colleagues have said. I don't know if you're aware, but Romania appeared in many tops, like having the best internet or amongst the best internet connections in the world, which we know and we suffer every time we leave the country because we're like, oh my God, this internet is so slow in any country we go. The worst is Germany, but where even the coverage is like pretty bad. And part of the reason why we have this internet is a funny story, because we are very curious, we got out of communism, we are very curious to know the world. And as soon as internet appeared, it was extremely expensive to have like cable internet and cable TV and all that. But Romanians, being in this side of Europe, where we are very creative with limited resources, we basically put cables from one apartment to another, shared, like stole the internet from other people, or make one subscription and multiply it to 10 apartments. And when the real big companies came, they just used the networks that we created, illegally of course, and plugged it in. So we have a huge connection around the country. And that's using innovation in with limited resources. I'm pretty sure nobody understood what they are doing for 10 years from that moment. But yeah, it's part of the fun of being in such a country. But before moving to my colleagues with the challenge, I want to move to you. So let's imagine that we are a room full of people who will now take very serious decisions about the internet and social media. So I will give you a challenge. You can ban, you can restrict, you can free whatever regulations that you want now. And I want to hear what that is. You can ban Meta if you want. You can ban TikTok, whatever you want. But I will move now to you, and I will give you a challenge. So I will start with Nikos. What are you going to ban? What are you going to regulate? What freedom do you want to put on internet?
Okay, you know my position. That's I think that we should regulate the field in order to put some rules and regulations, both in order to protect the notion of citizens. What it prevails now, it is the notion of consumer, not the notion of citizen. So I wouldn't I would actually include something like banning. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. You can ban, you can regulate, you can free whatever you want on the internet. You have the decision, and now we are making the decisions. This is the town council.
All right, I'm also not speaking on behalf of the U.S. State Department here. I would regulate more in the States, our financial apps like Venmo, and they're trying, but I think there's still more to be done there, and oversight and making sure that people are using it in ways that make the most sense, like for personal and professional developments.
Very interesting point. For example, I have a thing that many of the young people we work with give us for payment Revolut, because they think that the Romanian government doesn't see what you have on Revolut. Of course, they see what you have on Revolut, and they will come after you. But it's like this myth that Revolut is like a shady place where you can hide your secret 10 euros or whatever you have. So you can regulate whatever you want. What do you do?
So I'm not very an expert on technology. That's not my field. But personally, I think I wouldn't ban anything, because I think that when you ban a platform, there's always another one that's gonna get created that's gonna turn into the exact same thing that you just banned. But I think I would do more regulation. And on how that's going to take forms, I have no idea. But I will leave that to the experts in the room.
We will decide here in the room by the end of this day. Let me squeeze.
First of all, a lovely question. I love it. What would I do? I wouldn't necessarily ban anything, like she said, but I would make it mandatory for every person in the world to use social media with their given name and surname. No, so yeah, I would ban anonymity. That would be like for a small part moving forward against bullying, against like cyber stalking and that kind of thing. I think that will help in putting like clean space online. And then I would heavily regulate and made it mandatory for both influencers, brands, everyone who does business online, including AI, to like put paid promotion is not enough. You need to be very clear what is the mean of your content, and as well if you use AI. Those three things.
Amazing question. I think I will regulate the channel scrolling, like TikTok channel scrolling. I think it's the channel scrolling. And also I will regulate or something about the politic content that now it's like it's politic content, so it's kind of banned what, for example, non-profit organizations do and post on social media. So I think I will clarify that more in order to, as non-profit organizations or whoever influencers talk about politics, be more reachable to people and even especially young audience.
I don't think enough has been said about the climate and the environment, and I would strongly consider regulating massive compute. I think that we are spending way too much energy on frivolous things as a form of entertainment, and that the amount of compute that's going into, like for example, Grok now is, we have no promise from Grok, but it's going to be using like 100,000 H100s, and it's just cooking with the amount of power. And I really believe that we've got to get much more serious about the relationship between compute and the climate.
So I make this experiment, but in a different way with young people, because I provoke them to invent a republic, and without any question, every time they put the death penalty in their republics, which is very surprising. Of course, it's for the people who are for the bullies, for the bad people, but it always comes up, and it's very funny how if you put some people in a room, some very interesting ideas pop up, and no pressure for you, but based on the discussions here, you have to make a decision. Do you have a microphone? Yeah, please. What do you regulate? What do you ban? Based on what people also said.
Okay, I'm going to look at my phone just because I prepared this ahead of time because I really wanted to think about it. I mean, for me, one of the first things that I would do is, how many of you have heard of something called Section 230 of the 1996 Telecommunications Act? I would sunset that. That essentially is giving platforms a lot of legal protections for content that is hosted online. I think that that is one of the biggest problems that we have at the platform level, is that although it started with great intentions, I think that is one of the biggest things that is creating and kind of perpetuating some, not all, but some of the problems that we have with
Can you briefly explain
digital
what
media.
it contains to the people who don't know?
Off the top of my head, it's essentially saying that platforms are not responsible for the content that's held on their online, which leads to a lot of issues then as it relates to moderation.
Started saying that digital actually can't address this issue, that they are responsible for the content. That's why they bring Elon Musk to the European Parliament.
So that's one. That's another another very quick one that I want to do to say is I wouldn't go to the banning side. I would talk about how do we elevate positive narratives. So one is like overcoming negative. How do we elevate positive? A lot of the work that I've done with my time has been with journalism. And one of the best things, especially any of you who are content creators can do, is to elevate local, public interest, investigative journalism. The people that are looking into corruption, the people that are putting their lives often on the line to make sure that our democracies are protected. That's often what journalism has been, and that's what it does. And really supporting these people, promoting their stories, let's say, helping them to do their work. That's one thing that you can do. Buy newspapers. And the third thing, just to very quickly hit on our colleague Bernie's point. So one of the things that I've been doing a lot in my personal time is focusing on IT sustainability. And one thing that already, so just to put this into context, IT makes up about 2 to 3% of all carbon emissions around the world at present. And that continues, that there's some voices say that's growing, some others say that efficiency is catching up. I would say as much as energy is an issue, I would say there's an even bigger one than issue. Not to undermine energy, that's very much an issue. It's about the resources that's going into these GPUs, the graphics processor units, the CPUs. They're all coming from, a lot of them are coming from the global south. You want lithium, you want cobalt. Guess where that's coming from? It's coming from South America, it's coming from Africa, and that is the global resource war now. It's on chips and all the things that go into chips, and it's the water that helps to cool AI processor systems. It's the water that's being dried up slowly because of climate change and many other things. So I would really focus a lot of our efforts on that nexus between climate and technology.
Thank you. Please.
First, I wanted to respond to one of the comments that was made in the audience about banning kind of anonymity on the internet. This is something that sounds good, but it's very bad in practice, and I will explain to you why. It's something that I learned when I was working at Meta. For every single thing that any technology company does on the internet, you have to think about not the people who are good, but the people who will use the tool in the worst case possible. What does that mean with anonymity on the internet? I was in a forum called the Oslo Freedom Forum. The Oslo Freedom Forum is for dissidents, for people who are activists against their own governments. Every day, authoritarian regimes try to access data from big tech companies about all the people who are against them. I'm not even talking about states like Saudi Arabia and so on. In the US, abortion was made illegal in several places. The US is trying to get information from Meta where people are accessing that information. Like they are asking, like probably not every single entity, maybe it's not on a federal level, but it will be on a state level. The same is true for Russia, the same is true for so many countries in the world. Now if you take away that protection that all the people have that are dissidents, that are actively working against the government that is trying to oppress them, it's very horrendous. Like I'm all for it, that people who make hate comments should be shown by their real name. It's a very positive thing, but if you think it through from the very worst angle, it's unfortunately a bad thing. So that's why I would not support that. I would not, because you need to have a protection. Maybe there could be an entity, but then you need to always think about how does this work in a state where women are not allowed to work or doing whatever, and people are supporting that. Like there's a lot of considerations that have to go into this. Two things that I wanted to say on kind of banning or regulating. I'm not a big fan of banning. I think there was a really good statement being made about like it will just be replaced by the next platform. But there was a talk yesterday that I really liked on disinformation and on slowing down. One of the most important parts that I think that big tech platforms can do today and should implement is when there's harmful misinformation and disinformation, harmful as in validated already by a trusted partner. This could be an institution that has a lot of trust, humanitarian organizations, research institutes, that they state immediately disinformation is harmful. Then I think the opposite of what happens today should happen. The content should be blocked immediately and then released once a fact checker approves that it's actually valid, and not the other way around. So that would slow down the whole kind of misinformation, and that comes with an implementation of proactive scrolling. So platforms would have to be responsible to proactively search for that content that is uploaded on their platform, and stop all of that production and on the platform until a fact checker actually validated that, which comes also with a bigger investment into fact checking networks. That would be one of the regulations I would do. And then the second one, which might be also a bit surprising, is on filter bubbles and online commentary. For me, one of the biggest misconceptions is that social media created the filter bubble. The filter bubble existed as long as human beings existed. You always went to the friends and not the opponents to discuss things. What social media did was perfect it. Like, it made it to the best possible way of like, that you only see the content that you like. However, social media actually also has the antidote to that and is already applying that, not in the right amount, I would say. If you remember the times when you used Facebook, there was a lot of time that you see content that you liked, that you clicked on, but then every once in a while you see your elementary school friend, one post of that person. Why is that? There's an algorithm, there's a key part of the Facebook algorithm, which exists in almost every big tech platform, to remember you that you have also other content. Are you actually still interested in that? Now, if you click on that, suddenly you will see, oh, this person got married, has kids, and everything. The next 2 weeks, you will see so much, and you're like, how did I miss all of that? That means that, and for me, that is the antidote. So the big tech platforms have a method to show you something that you forgot, or to check something that maybe you don't have to be in that doom scroll method. So I would actually require companies to put that up, especially for when they can measure, for example, that you're making, and they can measure the sentiment of your commentary is getting very negative. Like, you have made 100 hateful comments in the last 10 days. It should show you suddenly 10 positive, and because it's proven that when you see more positive one, you will make more positive comments. If you see more hateful one, you will see make more hateful comments. So it should show you automatically a bit more positive comment to remind you that maybe that is also something that you're interested in. To that, I think that could counter some of that.
Thank you. Aura, ban or not, or regulate? What do you want to do? Free internet for all.
Wow. Yes, actually. Yes, that actually was going to be one of them that I think connecting more people, especially in the context of the Global South. I think you've picked it up. I'm really like, oh, positive vibes, just love each other. I'm really like a positive person. Apparently I'm a realistic optimist. I'm going to use that, abuse it. But I would definitely find a way to rein in advertising, because I feel like the meme that says at some point you're going to be watching the sunset and a pop-up ad is going to come up and you're going to have to go through a paywall to watch the sunset. I feel like that's a very Black Mirror type thing, but I feel like we're actually leaning very close to that. So I would find a way to rein in advertisers. I know it's a money thing. I don't know how that would work, but I feel like advertisers really need a leash at this point. I would also, I don't know how many people have watched the movie Ready Player One. Yeah, okay, so it's a movie that talks about the metaverse. It actually came out a while ago, and it basically describes this future where everyone basically lives their entire lives through the metaverse, and some even will go and use the bathroom wearing their headsets. Like, they'll shower wearing their headsets. Like, they are completely out of touch with reality. And one of the solutions towards the end was either, I think it's once at a certain time during the day or once a week, it's completely turned off. And I think the more technologically advanced we become, the less human we become. And I feel like we need more time being human, more time seeing each other in person. So whether it's, I don't know how each part of the world will decide it or how big tech will decide it, but there needs to be an off button, even if it's just for an hour, where human beings can be human beings and have a conversation and have a meal without looking at your phone. I feel like that's really, really important if we hope to have a future we can talk about and leave something for our kids. A lot of the stuff I wanted to say has already been said, but I feel like those two things are really important. And of course, connect more people. We need more infrastructure. The last thing is not really a ban or a restriction, but more like something I would like to see more of, which is more money being poured into research specifically around the Global South. I think we are being run by very few tech companies, like very few big tech companies are basically running the world. And I think there's so many incredible ideas everywhere, and I think people need that opportunity. So we need more research, definitely being put into, what did you call it? Last mile, spaces that are not mainstream. And I think we need a lot more research in terms of how technology is developed within those spaces, what solutions work, what don't. Maybe we don't all want to be watching what America's watching or what Europe is watching. So definitely developing more homegrown solutions, and we need a lot more research in that space. Yeah.
Thank you. So please feel free to raise your hands if you have any questions. And because I will also want to ask one last challenge, because we want to keep on time as much as possible. But again, feel free to interrupt us. So my challenge is for you to imagine 20 years from now, but even more specific, like how do you imagine your morning 20 years from now? What information consumption habits do you would have? So I'm forcing you to come into an imagined reality which is very concrete. And I will start by saying that I imagine it with a very non-invasive, very integrated technology, like not something you have to hold in your hand and your hand will fall off how heavy it is, something on your head or around your neck or whatever it will be, or in your house. Very tailored content. I had absolutely an amazing conversation yesterday with someone from here in the back. I won't say his name. And we talked specifically about this, and I loved how his vision was about the future. So I imagine it my morning with the coffee it's already prepared based on what the machine knows I like every morning and at a certain time. But I would also, all the news that I use, they will be delivered to me in a shape or another that's very easy for me not to do any effort. But I would also have an object in my hand. I really believe that sooner or later we will return to objects as a source of information more than we do now. And I don't know if it will be a newspaper, it will be a serious book with, I don't know how it will be, but I feel that we are starting to miss touching things that help us in our daily life, not just a screen. So this is my morning. What's your morning?
So I put a lot of thought into this question when we were preparing this panel. And so the internet as a set of technologies is marked by a word, and that's convergence. And to start with the negative or the pessimistic approach, I see ourselves as a kind of a society careening towards this convergence of multiple dystopia. There's not one. Zeynep Tufekci once said, we're building a dystopia to sell ads. We're actually building multiple dystopia to sell ads, and they're all kind of converging. And when I think about, for instance, what is science fiction? Science fiction is a form of art. It's just like any other art that has ever existed, going back to cave paintings, where we imagine a future, and then now we use engineering to actually create that future. And that, to me, is the scary part, because we think like, oh, is it going to be like Black Mirror? Is it going to be like The Matrix? Yes, it's all of the above. And
most likely Dune, as it looks like now.
I'm sorry?
Most likely Dune.
Maybe Mad Max, who knows? Like, will we all survive the wasteland? Hope so, you know? But what I prefer is like, so these multiple dystopian visions are kind of converging, and they're marked especially by resource competition. That's the geopolitics I mentioned. Inequality, that's a huge one, I'll come back to that. Surveillance, and of course the further erosion of both trust and liberalism. That to me is where we're going in general. Now, who is we? This comes back to the inequality of it all. What your morning will look like and what my morning will look like will depend very strongly on how much money do I have and which part of the world do I live in, and kind of what is my overall environment going to be like. If you are a middle class or wealthy Dutch person living in Amsterdam, most likely you will, I would imagine you will have a pretty okay life. But if you are a wealthy person, let's say, living in Lagos, in Nairobi, in Nigeria, what that person's life will look like versus a poor Nigerian's life, I can't really actually imagine the difference it will look, because I imagine it already looks very starkly different. The kind of news and information they're exposed to, the kind of privilege that they have. I'm sorry, I don't want to leave you on a very negative note, but I hope that things will get better, but whether or not that hope is actually founded in anything is a little bit lacking. But one thing I can say, and I do want to end with kind of at least a call for something. If you can do one thing in terms of technology and everything, this is the one thing I would recommend. Go on your platform of choice and watch Scott Galloway's recent TED Talk that he gave on kind of where we are with technology, the externalities that it's putting out, especially on, for instance, the mental health of adolescents, especially teen girls, and just use that as a kind of your own blueprint to think about what needs to be done, put down the phone, as Aura rightfully said, and live the life that we have at the moment.
Thank you. No pressure.
Okay, and what a morning that has been at your side.
Every morning. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the extreme opposite. Welcome to the morning in Wakanda, and I'm going to start with this because actually it has nothing to do, nothing to do with technology, but then it will influence a lot of technology. I think Africans are going to take their rightful place in the global discourse. Right now, a lot of what we see in the media and a lot of our trends are shaped by Western European, mostly US content. If we look at trends, where do they come from? It's mostly the US. Already in the last, I think, 2 decades, 17 out of the 20 fastest growing economies in the world were African. The whole youth movements, we've seen from Sam in Kenya, they're strong, they're influencing the continent. When you live on the continent, you see the power they have and the energy they have to move things and to start trends, to start movements. Once they have the access, even more than they do today, and as they continue to push, and the more global of an economy we become, the more this will become part of our daily lives. Like, I can wake up in Tallinn and hear news from Zimbabwe or Nigeria or Kenya because it's a global trend. It's amazing. There's so many hidden talents there, and we just don't see them or hear them because we don't look or we don't listen. So I think that will be part of the, like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm probably going to get some news from around the world. And it will be, I think, shaped a lot from the African continent, because that is where the mass of the youth is, where mass of the energy is. And I'm very hopeful with that. Now, when it comes to technology, I see a lot of upsides in augmented reality. You might have heard about virtual reality a lot, which is when you're completely in a virtual environment. Augmented reality is, maybe a lot of you remember Pokemon Go. One of my favorite examples, because everyone always tells you this is the fastest growing app, this is the fastest growing app. Actually, Pokemon Go in the history was the fastest growing app in history. Why? One, it used a pop phenomena, Pokemon. Second, it used technology that actually already existed, but brought it to real life. So augmented means that I can see all of you here, but maybe there will be other parts that are augmented into my reality. And I think I imagine my morning to be a lot like that, that I wake up and I have certain elements in my room. That might be my friend from Zimbabwe talking to me, hey, I'm already up for like 2 hours. Why have you missed this movement that is going on? It might be objects. It might be your favorite Pokemon, whatever it is. But I think that will be part of the technology that we will see a lot. And then I want to close with one sentence that I love. It is that we always overestimate the change that is going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years, and we always underestimate the change that is going to happen in the next 10 years. And I think that's what's going to happen. We have absolutely no idea, but it's going to be big changes.
Thank you. Aura.
Let me tell a story. Are you ready? Okay. So we live in this place called, I don't live here, we're in the future. So I'm living in this place called Inyanga in Mutare, which is like a mountainous, beautiful place, greenery, right? We're in the future technology. Grr, grr, the alarm rings, you know, whatever your alarm sound is. Okay. And my cool AI Siri person, who we called like Chipo or something, some African name, will greet me in a language of my choice, right? Good morning, or mamukase, or salibonan. He'll greet me in the language of my choice wherever I am, right? I'm gonna wake up and the first thing I'm gonna get is a community update, right? Bring, whatever, the interface, right? And it's telling me what's happening in my community. Okay, your neighbor ran out of water yesterday. This neighbor, their child is sick. Okay, I check into the community pool. We're gonna look in our community pool. Okay, so-and-so has a little extra water. We're gonna press the button and then it's gonna tring, put the water in so-and-so's water tank and we're gonna transfer water so that the community is okay, right? Because I am, because you are. If I'm okay, you're okay. If you're okay, I'm okay, right? Okay, so now I have my community report. So-and-so's child's sick, they've run out of medication. Okay, bing, bing, right? Now they get their little, through a tube, I don't know, in their house or something, a special delivery of paracetamol for their child or Tylenol, right? That's his first port of call, right? Then it tells me what's happening in my home. Your child is oversleeping, they didn't do their homework. Oh no, you're in trouble, right? We tap in, I'm able to communicate. Hey, hurry up, right? Hurry up, you're late for school, you gotta get ready. My child wakes up in the morning, bing, okay, what is going on at school today? What's happening with my friends? Oh, so-and-so didn't actually sleep. Oh no, because we're all logging into this community portal, right? We now are all in the Ubuntu portal. I just gave it a name, so cool. And now we know what's going on. And I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna bath. And then as I'm moving around my house, I've got my augmented reality, you know, I've got my lion over there, I've got my elephant over there greeting me, good morning, wow. We're walking, now I get a status report, what's happening with my livestock, because obviously we live in the future, so we're living in a world of sustainability, right? Everybody's got their own plants. What is my plant health? Okay, what is the agricultural report? Okay, you need more fertilizer here, you need that there. Oh, the cows have just done a number 2. Let's take that number 2. Number 2 is like a doo-doo, and you take this doo-doo, and then we're going to use that to fertilize my spinach because we're gonna have a huge community feast, okay? And I'm going through my house and my elephant is telling me, you know, it's gonna rain today and gives me like fake rain, like, you know, augmented rain. And I'm standing there and then I press a button on my wardrobe and it's gonna say, oh, you're gonna wear that African shirt and look so nice. And I'm gonna see it and it's gonna put a fake outfit on me and I'm gonna be looking in the mirror like, and I'm swiping and I'm choosing my swag, right? And then I pick the swag I like, right? And then I'm gonna put on my swag. And then I'm gonna step outside and there are no adverts. Wow, so nice, right? I can see the sun, the birds are flying. But hey, I think, wow, that's such a nice bird. I'm gonna press my glasses, well, that bird is called a bed, special bed, a sparrow, right? Okay, that's a pigeon. Oh, that's not so cool. And then it's gonna tell me about this pigeon and I'm gonna go, wow, that's so cool, all right, cool. And get there, I'm gonna tell my car, we are going somewhere and it's going to have a robot bring my child, dragging them to school, which is so great so that I don't have to do it. And we're gonna hop into our car and we're going to go underground because I believe that while some people will have flying cars, some of us are going underground because of climate. And now I have a better understanding of my economy. And I come into this space and we're living underground. And this is the future I see. I could go on with this story. I have this story planned until bedtime. So if you're interested, come and see me later. But that is what I see when I envision my perfect African future.
Can I just say very quickly, after listening to these two brilliant people, I can definitely understand why people don't invite me to parties anymore. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a little bit carried away as expected, so that we are kind of out of time, but please feel free to reach out to these cool people in the coffee break if you want to talk more to them. And or post in the WhatsApp your questions and hopefully tag them and maybe they will respond, or if not, hunt them on social media because they have the real names on social media and you can talk to them. Thank you so much. Move on to a coffee break, but before that I want to give a round of applause also to our moderators for the whole day. Because Ora and Dimitris did not have proper, because they are the team.
And her panel is going to be about digital influence and media products. Mariana, I'm going to allow you to introduce your panel.
Of course, I will do it. Hi, everyone. How are you? I will share a fun fact before we start. We have an internal competition with Diana, who has the coolest panel. You can come. Who has the coolest panel? After me. This is the coolest panel. Please join me. Please join me on stage. And now we have to meet very high expectations after the previous panel. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Theo is here also. Great. Today we focus actually on how to spread positive impact, which is for me the most important thing, the most important discussion. And I'm sharing the stage with three very cool people in order to discuss, to share actually our thoughts on how to spread positive impact and learn from their key insights. Let me do a very short round of introductions. I'm Mariana. I am the communications director of DCN Global, as Ora said. I used to be a journalist long years ago, and I have experienced this transition from the traditional media to the digital media in a very weird context of huge economical crisis in Greece in 2009. And together with me, I have my cool people, Diana. I will start with a lady. Christina Nemr is the founder and the CEO of Becerra. It's actually a company that bridges the public and the private sectors in order to address challenges in the information environment that yield in instability and conflict. She is coming from New York. Mr. Rishad Patel is the co-founder of Splice Media, an organization that supports actually media startups in Asia by collaborating with the global media ecosystem. Rishad also has been a product and design professional for more than 20 years, right? And he's coming from Singapore. Last but not least, of course, Mr. Theodor Titsa. He is the co-founder of Gensteer. Gensteer is the coolest news platform, social media first platform in Romania, led by Gen Z content creators and communicators. They cover the news for Romania. And also the co-founder of Gen Z. Gen Z is the new news product that covers Eastern and Central Europe, and is powered by Jen Steer and DCN Global. And we are more than happy to have you here with us. I want to start by providing us a little bit of context, meaning how do you define digital influence? Whoever wants to start, please do.
I think digital influence is anything that people will pay attention to. Anything, I mean anything, from a guy who cooks at home some sausages to Donald Trump complaining on Truth Social that he got scammed by Joe Biden. Digital influence, it means any kind of attention. Attention that is, of course, obtained online. I think it's that easy. I will not go to philosophical definitions on this. It's attention. And every time you post something on, I don't know, Instagram or whatever, and somebody gives you a like, or they remember that you posted that, you got that digital influence, no matter how small it is.
I would say that that's a very good definition. I would argue that to be then truly influential, it should also challenge you and force you to take perspective and to change your perspective, or even incorporate other perspectives, which can be a difficult thing to do well. Because we've had several conversations now, and there will be a lot of themes that pop up, but to be influential, you do want to kind of offer a new perspective, right? You want your audience to leave maybe having their paradigm shifted. But it's a balance, because if you try to shift the paradigm too much or to challenge people too quickly, too fast, they'll change the channel, so to speak, and you'll lose your influence. But that's something that we can discuss throughout the panel.
I love that point of being able to trust your audience, to be able to gain and lose influence. And it makes me think of the economy of attention we live in. And I think that's where digital influence comes from. But I also wanted to, before that, say that the world of digital influence that I want to live in is Aura's world. That's the world I want to occupy. That's the world that where at Splice, I come from an organization of 2 people. That we work around the world, and Aura kind of, in her magical way, sort of built this world where I love how, that's the world I love for digital influence to work in the ways that it should come from her neighbors, it should come from user needs, it should come from the needs of your audience. If you're in the business of purveying information or content, that you're listening to the needs of your neighbors, whether it's rice or information or election needs. That's where I think digital influence is going.
And how do you think that digital technology has changed or reshaped media products?
Well, I will answer from my position as a journalist for 20 years. It did shape it a lot, in the sense that media outlets were obliged to move to the digital space, because there's no media if there's no audience. I know there's a trend among journalists that sometimes they write in order for other journalists to read, but what's important is the audience, and if the audience it's on a specific social network, you go there. You go there without asking questions. You go there trying to understand the specifics of the medium, because in the end the product that you're selling is information. And information is still information, no matter if it's on Instagram or on New York Times, where there are some problems is with the rules, because people tend, and journalists included, they tend to believe that on social networks there are no rules. You are more free to do. No, you're free to experiment with the format, with the way the information is packaged, but you're not free from quoting sources, from fact-checking for stuff like that. You're not free from that. If you are a journalist, if you are an influencer, which means a lot of things, then you can do whatever it is that you want. But as for a media product, the rules are the same no matter if you are on Discord or you are on Truth Social or you are like I am, because I'm that old, I'm using Twitter. Or if you are on Twitter. So the packaging is changed, the mission is the same.
Christina?
I think it's both shrunk and expanded the world at the same time. It shrunk it because now we have our own personal sources of information. We have influencers in addition to journalists. We create our own personal relationships with influencers. It's become more intimate in a way as we follow the influencers that line up with our identity. So there's this intimacy that we get, yet at the same time, it expanded the globe in that now it's no longer, we're not commenting just on our immediate surroundings and our local news and our community, which I also think is a bad thing, or bad or a good thing, depending. I'd love to get into the civic engagement later on and local news perspectives. But it means that now we feel the need to have an opinion and commentary on every little thing happening. And it can be a bit too much sometimes. And we are obviously blasting sometimes our uninformed opinions for everyone to comment on. So both shrunk and expanded.
Yeah, I love that. You know, one of the things that we do at Splice is help journalists build products. And, you know, Tio and Christina and I were having a chat outside yesterday about productization and what that means. And in Mariana's first, I'll get to the point really quickly, I promise. Mariana's first email to us, she said, in one of your newsletters, you said media and journalism has a product problem. And I was like, yikes, are you going to ask me that on stage? I'll get murdered. And I think that's true. And I think that one of the things I've started saying in my, helping journalists around the world build media products that build revenue and audience and stuff. One of the things I've started saying is, what keeps me up at night is that what if you're doing the best journalism of your life and it isn't getting to the people that need it the most because you're a victim of gambling with the algorithm? And I think that it's a shame to put that talent and that fantastic role, that magical role that journalists play in our society, and put it all in that roulette wheel of hopefully it'll make it. Hopefully it'll get traction. Hopefully I'll get advertising. Hopefully YouTube will grant me income with the algorithm. Hopefully I'll get a grant. I think a good media product kills that hopefully bullshit, pardon my French. It cuts through all of that and allows you to build something intentionally for an audience that has told you they want it. And so I think Teo's right. The packaging has changed, but the relationship between a builder and a purveyor of content, whether you call it yourself a journalist or not, is about your relationship with your user, whether they're your audience or another kind of user altogether.
And now that I'm listening to you very carefully, in my mind, the word that keeps pushing me is the term trust, actually. And I would like Ruben to help me to have a Slido, because I want your help also to reply. Oh my God. That's good. That's good. It's a plot twist, because most of the studies say that people trust influencers more than journalists. And I would like to open this discussion, because at least from my perspective, trust is truly connected with influence. People need to trust you in order to be influenced by you. What are your thoughts about influencers, about journalists, about our media landscape in general? I see Theo. ready for that.
I have a small example. I don't know, 13 years ago or something, I was watching TV. There was this Romanian politician which was also a poet and some moronic nationalist. He was speaking on TV, and I found him very funny, but I was watching because I was bored. At some point, the moderator, Mariana of Romanian TV, said, wait a minute, there's an earthquake. And the guy remained with his mouth open, and she started talking about the earthquake. So he did not recite any poetry that evening. I looked at the TV audiences the next day. It was like this, nobody's watching except me, and then like this. What I'm trying to say here is that, of course, influencers are good, important, they do change our lives, they do touch our lives, but when something really big is happening, we're turning to the BBC, to the classical media, to the so-called mainstream media, as my Gen Z colleagues will call it. We're turning to the real journalists. We're not turning to influencers to find out that the American president was killed. We're turning to journalists because there is structure, there are rules. So from this point of view, I think everybody's in a different league. I'm not saying journalists are better than the influencers. No, everybody has its own mission. But when it comes to hard news, to real news, you won't turn to an influencer to find out things about inflation, to find out things about the health services in your country or your city or whatever. You turn to real journalists. You turn to influencers. Why? Because what is not lacking right now in this world that we live in, maybe except North Korea or Russia, is information. We have all the information in the world. No other generation than this generation had more information. We have all the information, but this is overwhelming. You don't know what to do with that information. You don't know where to look for what's important. And influencers are contributing to this. They're putting context, they're putting attitude on the information. How should I treat this piece of information, which I don't know what to do with it? And then it comes some commentators, some influencers, some whatever, and he said, I think you should put it that way. And then you start borrowing his beliefs and moving on from there. But coming back, when it's about hard news, you turn to the media. When it's about opinion, you turn to influencers, you turn to commentators, you turn to whatever.
This audience, this audience trusts definitely in, journalists. 45 people have already voted. Christina, you have studied actually the technological and the psychological factors that impact trust and influence. So I really want to hear your key insights.
I want to share a story too, but I actually have a question for Teo first. To build on this discussion of journalists versus influencers, and I would love to hear from the group as well. And I'll put forth the premise, you can disagree with it or not, but if we argue that journalists, they have journalistic standards, they're going with the facts, they're reporting the facts, putting into context for you, and then influencers, they're connecting with you. There's this intimacy. They're helping you shape your identity. They're helping you make sense of things in a way. Do you think there is a way to merge, like a journalist influencer, or do you feel like they should always remain separate?
I don't think they can be totally separate. It's not possible because we're living in the same circle, same world, and I can turn to my colleagues from Gen Z. They are very, very sensitive when an influencer says something about us, and they are kind of saying, because we're reaching like 3 million people a month, and Of course, we're important. You cannot ignore. They cannot ignore each other's. Think about this situation. Any streamer that you like, or I don't know, influencer, Instagram influencer, try to delete all the information which comes from the mainstream media from their feed. Try to read it, but ignore everything that comes from the classical media. You'll see that there's almost nothing left there. There's just some random opinions with no point. I don't think they can merge because there are rules and there are very clear on the one side and there are no rules on the other side. But I don't think they can ignore each other and they have to share a room. It's like a tiger and a lion. They need to live together, and then, I don't know if any of you knows this, but there's this animal called liger, which is a cross between a tiger and a lion. That's the world. It is the world of a liger we live in.
Oh, there you go. That's the theme of the panel. Okay, so I'll start by saying, you know, information doesn't exist in a vacuum. We're all taking it in based on our own experiences. And so for that reason, we have to respect that we believe what we believe, we think the way we think because of our background, everything that has happened to us. And so I come from a world, I started my career in counterterrorism, specifically countering violent extremism, which some of you in the room currently work on, and about understanding the narratives that shape our attitudes and beliefs for either, you know, violent extremist purposes, but more broadly as well. And in that vein, there's, you can't counter-narrative your way out of bad governance, out of corruption, out of an individual's need for belonging in community. You really do have to have this empathy of understanding where and what is driving somebody. And so that's the premise that I've always approached the work that I do. And I'll give you two examples that kind of show when bringing the influencer. The first thing I will say is actually more recently, and Jill gave us a fantastic breakdown yesterday about, you know, the necessity behind the TikTok proposed ban. One thing that I realized as the discussion was happening, especially in the US, I was attuned a little bit more to the US conversations, nobody explained why TikTok needed to be banned. Everyone said we need to ban it, but no one said why. And it was actually, there's like an arrogance that comes from it. When you're telling your audience, your constituents, the people that you're meant to influence, that they need to do something without giving them the respect of explaining why, that then hinders your ability to perform. And there's been a lot of research that shows that if you can actually provide a why, or I am doing this because, people will more readily accept what it is that you are saying. So that was one thing that I found concerning. But to bring this back to the role of influencers in journalism, you know, I was part of a project a few years back during COVID when the vaccines came out and they were being rolled out country by country. And at the time, South Africa, this was I think mid to late 2021, South Africa was about to get the vaccine. But they had been watching how the rollout had been going in other countries, anticipating that there might be some blowback and pushback, and they wanted to kind of get ahead of this. And so we worked with two companies, one based out of Kenya, which is called AIfluence, fantastic name, AIfluence. And what they first did was a social listening campaign to understand, to start engaging certain towns in South Africa to understand, you know, the vaccine is coming out, what do you think about it, any concerns, any hesitations, and just started gathering all of that input to be able to, you know, respond to it. At the same time, there was another digital media company called Sea Monster based out of South Africa, which puts together these compelling videos, fantastic YouTube shorts and others, that was putting together the history of the vaccine, the history of the flu vaccines in general, and how that, you know, played into COVID and all that stuff, which again, giving their audience the respect it deserves of explaining things. And together, based on first the social listening of understanding people's concerns around the vaccine, paired with the campaigns of videos, they also then gamified it. They got people to sign up. They also, the whole bit of the campaign was actually to use micro-influencers. So people who have audiences of around 10,000 or up to 50,000, AIfluence has a team of micro-influencers in various countries that they will activate, if you will, with like, here are the talking points, but please engage your audiences based on the way you interact with them. But here are the facts as well that you can share as they ask questions. So in that sense, it was a fantastic way of using influencers in a manner where normally like you would have relied on journalists. And I think that's a wonderful example of, in my opinion, of how to go about it.
Rishad, how can we, in order to continue this conversation, what do we need to do in order to create or to ensure that media products will be reliable but also popular?
So, yeah, I love what you're saying there about what you guys did in South Africa, and it makes me think about the UNDP in Cambodia commissioned us to work on shrinking civil spaces in the media landscape. And they were like, you know, could you guys come and do a study and do a report and tell us how, and in a weird way, we were talking about this was back in 2018, we were talking about the anatomy of trust, in a sense. And it was fantastic to see this, not just in Cambodia, but to also go to answer your question, to also go to the Philippines. A Danish media funder commissioned us to work with a Filipino podcasting studio. And these guys came to us and they said, look, all we do is build product. We put products out in terms of shows. We have these massive audiences. We have millions of people listening to about 50 shows that we do. One thing we've never done, and that you guys have always told us to do, is listen to our audiences. We expect our audiences to listen to our products. Long story short, we put together a bunch of focus groups, which were very structured. And we had the podcasting team there. They were called Puma Podcast. All the team Puma Podcast in focus group after focus group, for the first time in their lives, after being in business 5 years, were face to face with their listeners, hearing their listeners speak to them. And the CEO's face, I'm happy to say, was like that for about 10 days. This wonderful man called Carl Javier. I'll select quickly a number of things that he heard from his listeners. One was, make it easy for us to give you money. And Carl's like, can I respond to this? Why do you want to give us, for what? You can listen to our shows for free. And the listeners are saying, yes, that's the problem. Sorry, can you put a donate button or a pay? Why would you? Well, because you think your business model is advertising. Well, it's actually, this is my way of showing you support. I want to be able to support you. Another listener, in fact, a big bunch of listeners said this, make it easy for me to give you money. I put that in the report in very large pink lettering, because pink is our color. I also heard over and over again, I would like to come and listen, over and over again. We love that you do podcasts. It's great, don't worry about it, but that's not why we hang out. That's not why we listen to Puma Podcast. Carl is like, that's literally in our name. It's all we do. What are you talking about? Why would you? Here's why. In the Philippines, the political space is massively polarized. You can get into very serious trouble. And when I say trouble, you can be killed for saying the wrong thing in the wrong crowd. You cannot be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It is really difficult. In that polarization, and this is, I'm sort of translating what the listeners were saying, over and over we hear that for us to listen, we understand that for us this is a safe space. You give us a safe space. That's why we listen. We don't care if you make, one woman said, and I will never forget this, again, Carl's face, it was joy. We don't care if you make ball bearings or podcasts. You are a safe space. We want to be there. But the one thing we want from you is help us meet each other. How do we find each other? because that means we're finding our tribe, we're finding our safe space. So I'm sorry I took that long-winded route to come to you.
No.
But that, for me, is what a true media product looks like. And that's what that's where it becomes positive, that you allow a community to develop around your product.
Speaking of community, it's super important to go back again to the audience, let's say. And I would like to go a little bit deeper with each of you based on your experience. I will start with Theo. Gen Z is a new phenomenon, I would say, in Romania. You mentioned that you reach 3 million people. Okay. Please keep it. I can scream. Now, yeah. You mentioned earlier that your monthly reach is 3 million people. And this tells me that young people do consume news, right? Because there is a sense, and there are also studies, not only a sense, that most of the people intentionally avoid news. What's your sense? You are a journalist, you have created with Diana this amazing team. What's your sense, your feedback?
I think the news avoidance phenomenon is real. Even I sometimes I don't want to look at the news. I have these moments, but I wake up really fast and go back. But it's not a generic phenomenon. Sometimes it happens. People get tired and they don't want to hear the news. They don't want to hear bad news. Lots of people, this news avoidance comes from the fear that I'm going to hear something bad and I'd rather not know about it. However, there is this trope, this legend that the young people don't want to read the news. They do. It's empirically solved somehow. We at our team, we proved that young people want to read the news. What they don't want to read, what they don't want to watch, what they don't want to listen is products that they feel are not paying attention to them, are manipulating them. And I don't know how is it in everyone's country, but in my country for 20 or 30 years, generation after generation heard about how bad the media is. Everybody's saying that. I mean, all the adults in the room will say, oh, the media is bad. The journalists are bought and sold at every corner. And if you hear that since you are 7 years old, when you turn 18, of course you're going to believe that. Of course you're going to believe that. And there's another thing, and this one is related to the social networks age, because they feel that the so-called mainstream media is not doing right by them, they will start searching for news, simply jumping the national media. They will go on Reddit and read the American takes on the American elections or the conflict in the Middle East or whatever. They will go to New York Times, some of them. They will go to wherever, and they will not read this level of news. They will avoid it. So, coming back to the question, they do want the news, and I don't know any person that doesn't read the news, doesn't stop when something important happens and a TV is open. I don't know any person that doesn't doom scrolling through feeds and stops at something that's interesting for them. I think coming back to what I said earlier, the packaging is very important, and you need to know your audience. Many journalists don't do that. You need to know your audience. They, for example, they feel like it's a lot of information around, so I need it fast and quick. I don't want to see this block of text when I can see it in a sentence. It's quite easy to see it in a sentence. Do I want more? I'll go to the block of text. These two things they do not exclude each other. So I'm quite optimistic. We're not going to an age of idiocracy where nobody is reading the news. Everybody's reading the news. Everybody's getting their information from somewhere. Where our mission comes, and I think we should pay attention to that, if we quit, they will go to the dark corners of the net. They are already there, but they need a counter to that. If we quit, yes, of course, you're going to see a lot of conspiracy theories and stupid stuff around. But they do want information.
Speaking of information, I would like to ask Christina about how to counter extremism and counter disinformation policies that you have developed through your career. And I'm really interested to hear from you some key insights, some thoughts that you have on that.
Out of curiosity, though, I'd like to kind of engage the audience very quickly.
Yeah, please do it. Please do it.
Who here gets their news from Twitter or X? Okay. Yeah. Is that the first place you check for news when you wake up? Okay. Who here gets their news from TikTok? Okay. Interesting. The rest of you, are you getting it from traditional news media? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. It was a simplified question, but you're right. A lot of it us are getting a mix. Okay. To your point about young people, especially, they want the news. I will share a very quick anecdote. After the attempted assassination on Trump, the next day, my friend was telling me at work, there's this young gentleman, I don't know how old he was maybe 18, 19. He heard everyone talking about it. He's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, what do you mean? Haven't you seen the news? He was like, I heard something about it, but I thought it was like old, like historical news about a presidential assassination. Zero curiosity about what he's yeah. So, sample size of 1. To your point about counter-narratives, this actually is where I, having worked in this space for a while, I don't like the term counter-narratives, right? Because again, there is an arrogance in assuming that you are going to transcend someone's lived experience and give them the perfectly placed narrative or video or point that's going to change their entire existence. It's not going to happen. You have to meet people where they are. And that is hard to do at scale, especially, which is why the work experience brings me to a love and an advocacy for the third spaces that Gernot was talking about, but specifically bringing civic engagement, I like to frame it as civic engagement, and bringing it into the digital age, fit for the 21st century, because we do now have the tools to be able to engage people online and offline, giving them that offline experience, but we need to root them in their community. And this is also where local news has a huge role to play. We've done some research on the interplay between government engagement of their citizens and how that impacts upon trust, then how the local news helps keep you informed about your community, which then makes you want to be more civically engaged and involved in your community, and the benefits that brings. And so I would love to see, and if I could just have a little call to action, new forms of social media that focus on civic engagement, leveraging tools like Polis, which was mentioned yesterday, which Taiwan has used heavily, and other both federal and state, local governments have used to understand consensus. Where are citizens aligned? What do they care about? But looking at it from a consensus-based aspect and trying to move through all of the noise to the signal. So that was a long way of saying, I don't want to focus just on the counter. We need to not counter. We need to meet people and understand their concerns, but also then try to address them in a concerted way. And for me, that truly is a new form of civic engagement.
With that one,
So I have a question for you. So this is the question I've been threatening to ask you actually in the 3 days we've been here. Is, you know, if I could have, if I could design a panel in a conference that I run in Chiang Mai every year, I want to ask you my dream question. You basically in your work, I'm not going to call it counter anything now after what you said, but in your work as a criminologist, in generally speaking, what lessons would you work in the business of trust, and what would you teach journalists about building trust, about signals of trust, about weak signals, about stronger signals that you don't necessarily trust? How would you translate that knowledge in a journalist's world?
Could have given me a heads up. You were gonna. I'm kidding. I do want to clarify. So I have a background in forensic psychology, which has shaped a lot of the work that I do about attitudes and motivations for actions, behaviors. The first thing I would say is that the one thing that we learn, for those of us who work in the countering violent extremism space, is that people are very unreliable narrators of their own motivations. Absolutely. And so, as it's kind of paradoxical to say you need to listen to your audience, but sometimes your audience doesn't know what they want. They tell you what feels good. They tell you what they think you want to hear. And also, we do have a tendency. We're the primary characters in our own stories. We look back on our lives. We give you an arc because it sounds good, but at the time, that wasn't the case at all. And so there's a bit of both, asking your audience, making sure you understand where they're coming from, but then acknowledging that there's going to be, you have to read between the lines as well. But I think the listening and the transparency is also then what contributes to that trust, right? And there's a transparency underpins everything for me, right? And citizens trust their governments more when they feel like they're communicative, they're transparent, and there's follow through. So all these things contribute, both citizens to government, and then vice versa. So that's how I'd somewhat respond to that.
That's amazing. I have some keywords here, like empathy, civic engagement. After trust, now transparency, which is totally connected. And as we are about to close this session, I would like to ask all of you how we can use all these digital platforms for positive change from now on.
I have a problem with positive change. I would like some negative change, yes. No. It's about, I think the positive change is by, you can change things for the better by doing your job very well. What I mean about that, in a world that is full of disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, whatever, bad information, I think if you provide your audience with good information, very well packaged, and you keep them there, and you have some values that you act upon, I think that's positive change. I would not go into the activist side. I don't think journalists are, I was just reading before the panel started, I was reading about the struggles in the New Yorker. They have a piece about the struggles at the New York Times. And they have their, and I'm sorry to see that, it's not the first time I'm reading, they have activist journalists with very strong opinions on stuff like, I don't know, Middle East and whatever. I don't think that's good for journalists, because in the end, if you're an activist as a journalist, you'll fall on the wrong side of the story, and then your credibility goes to shit. And I don't think journalists should be activists. They should not be active or they should not have political opinions very loudly expressed. They should do their job. That's positive change. When you compare, I don't know, when you compare the New Yorker with Breitbart, to take some random examples, you'll see that New Yorker, it's important. It's kind of a positive change there. If you simply need to do your job as a journalist. As an influencer, of course, you have this huge platform. Use it for whatever you think is good. But as a journalist, I don't think you should do that.
This is a boring panel in that we're all agreeing with each other. I'm sorry.
I'm going to contradict her right now.
I wanted to have I want to have some bits here, but okay.
Sorry. Okay. To build on something you just said, and to carry on the point of the counter-disinformation work and why I don't like it, the focusing on disinformation in a way can be a distraction, because this has existed since time immemorial. It's always going to be there. Manipulated information is always going to be there. It's in the background. And so I am a huge advocate of just, it's like putting your head down and continuing to do what you need, putting out the facts, putting out good work, putting out information that, I don't want to even label it good information, just continue saturating the space, because that's where we are now. And then people are going to naturally form their communities and bonds as they will. And so because of the nature of the work that we all do, we always tend to look at the bad ways, like the ways everything can be weaponized, and emerging tech and how the glass half empty. I'm very much a techno-optimist in this space. I'm very much about putting your head down, continue to do the work. Humans are going to human, and we'll continue having our biases affect the way we look at it. We'll kind of self-segregate into our communities. And so let's leverage that. How do we work within human psychology to continue offering new ways of positive engagement? And again, civic engagement for the digital age, giving us those third spaces, I think is a wonderful way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I want to go right back to Gernot and your chat with us about this morning about third spaces. I truly believe we live in the golden age of media. I think the things that we can do with this, as you can see, I'm a glass half full. I believe in many glasses, mostly full. When it comes to the age we live in, the things we can do, every single one of us is able to create an entire information ecosystem and a company right now in the seat that you're at with the device that you have in your hand. You can reach the community that you want in order to serve their needs. You can reach your community in the way they need. I had such a great chat a couple of days ago with Ilona, who has for 20 years, she built an NGO that works with children. And I was so impressed with how you spoke about your NGO and the conversations. We had such a great chat over lunch about the conversations she has with these children, what the good that she's trying to do for them in order to make that transformative change, that profound transformative change in their troubled lives. There's a lot of beauty in this world, and there's so much power we have as journalists and purveyors of information with the technology we have. There's somebody who doesn't identify as a journalist who's doing spectacular work. We all have the power to do that. And if you spoke about us having a call to action at the end of this panel, my call to action would be, if you're in the business of creating and distributing and processing information, please create a third space with that user, that audience. Remember, your user isn't only your audience. Create that third space and occupy it, and ask them not about your content. Don't talk about media. Ask them about their lives and what you can do for them, because maybe journalism is a service industry after all.
Theo wants to add something on that.
I just wanted to add a short thing. The role of the media is not to change the world. That's the role of politicians, of scientists. That's the role of, priests. I don't know. People like that. The role of the media is to have this giant mirror and put it in front of you. What you do then, it's not the duty of the media to influence and to try to change you. Because, and I'm talking from experience, I've been there myself, in this field of work, there is certain arrogance. Journalists tend to look at their audiences and the world, they tend to look from above down, you know. And I keep telling my colleagues that as a journalist, you always look from down up or from an equal level. Never, you don't look down on people, never, ever. So that's why I'm trying to push the brake here a little. We're not apostles on a mission to change the world as journalists. I mean, we're here just to show you how you look, and then you decide what to do next.
I would go to my last question because we ran out of time, and I want to open the floor for more questions from the audience. It's 2024. I cannot ignore the buzzword AI, and I would like you to reply, to answer, what role do you think that AI will play in reshaping media products from now on?
We're already in a very hyper-personalized media consumption environment, and I think AI is just further going to accelerate that. It'll be kind of like your little AI co-pilot as you're reading the news to help. First, it's going to dynamically update news, I imagine, constantly pulling in new perspectives, new current breaking news as it comes in. So it'll be a little faster and helping, again, shape the perspectives. I feel like it'll help us better visualize what's, putting things in context. Again, I'm going to take a more optimistic route because that's the panel's day's theme. There are so many ways it could go wrong, but I choose to focus on the ways that it's going to accelerate the hyper-personalization and our understanding of the world around us.
You know that song "Video Killed the Radio Star"? Yeah, it's the first video that was played on MTV like 40 years ago. I think we're going to the same period. The AI is gonna kill journalism and whatever. It's not gonna kill anything. It's not gonna kill anything. The only danger that I see for the media industry is that we're gonna dive deep like we did with Facebook, and then we're gonna suffer a little. Then we're gonna have to find ways to monetize. We're gonna find ways to whatever thing that we have to do to survive. I don't think Skynet is here. It's not gonna be here, I think, as long as we are alive. Skynet and Schwarzenegger, they will come probably 200 years from now, but not now. So what I'm saying is keep working, keep doing what you're doing, because you've been through change with Twitter, with Facebook, with whatever. With websites, I remember when the websites were something, why are we writing for the internet? For whom are we writing? Yeah, so I think it's hasta la vista, baby, and get to work.
I'm trying to make friends with AI. I'm not sure if we're there yet. I'm trying to help journalists figure out their relationship with AI, and I keep learning from them what they want to do with it. I find most of our conversations tend around content generation. I think I'm not that excited about that aspect of AI. I think the beauty of it, again, here I go being horribly optimistic, but I think if you're in the business of trying to find people at scale, trying to find problems at scale, and trying to help people with their needs and their problems, no matter what industry you're in, it's going to be as close to Aura's world as possible. So I think that's what I want from AI.
Now we have a picture. After Aura's story, now all we want, Aura's morning. You have something to add? I see you.
I think although many journalists are afraid that AI is going to take our jobs, I think new jobs will appear. New jobs will appear, and they will. I totally think that we need an AI editor, and we need an AI code of conduct, of ethics. Who's gonna approve? I think you need human supervision to whatever the AI puts out, because everyone knows, I think, that the AI is hallucinating a lot and it does a lot of stupid stuff. But at the same time, we have newsrooms in Romania that they are publishing AI, and you can tell it's AI because it's quite stupid. The way they are using the language, the way they are using the information. And I think in the future, some of us will be AI editors, AI, I don't know, boss. So maybe Skynet is not coming, but I'm going to be its boss.
Let's see. I can wait for that. I want to open the floor for questions. Please feel free to. Who wants to? Who has a question? I
AI
see.
is listening, so.
Raise the hand again.
Yeah, yeah. I see 1, 2.
Okay, okay. I told the panel I was going to do this because I have a comment more than a question, but it is relevant. It's for Keith, yeah. So it seems like based on this conversation, we're kind of talking about different themes in the sense that what came to mind for me was talking about trust versus legitimacy, right? Because trust is something that happens at a micro level, and the reason why many people trust influencers is because they're seen as authentic and responsive and relatable, whereas if it is a free and independent press, we see that as a legitimate source of information because, and that's how they sort of justify their power, their institutional power. So I think we're kind of talking about slightly different themes here within this conversation.
Hello, I just remember your remark about lion and the tiger. And I think lion is the king of the jungle. But what do you think, lion as a journalist? I see why we don't have so powerful personalities who can be influencers. Because I remember I was teaching in the United States 10 years ago. They said, we believe in professors. They said, we believe in futures. People will not believe in channels. They will believe in personalities, not in media, but media personalities. What do you think is lacking of journalism to be personality who can influence
I don't
people?
think personality is it's something that we should take into consideration when we're talking about journalism. I think, and I know many journalists with huge personalities, sometimes too big. And I used to fight them, I used to agree with them, but as a journalist it's like you are an engineer. You need to know which cable goes where, because if you put them wrong, everything will explode. You don't need personality, you need personality to be I don't know, Elon Musk maybe, to be a singer. I just come back from a festival, I'm sorry. You need personality if you're an actor. If you're a journalist, you don't need that much of your traits of character don't matter. The information is what matters. The way you package it, the way you present it, the timing of the information, the way you adapt it to the context. It doesn't matter if I'm, I don't know, flamboyant. I can be flamboyant, but that doesn't. I should not be in the paper, on my TV show, on my podcast, or whatever. If you're a journalist, if you're an influencer, you see there a lot of personalities, lots of traits of character, good or bad. Yeah. Yes, and then that's when the journalist comes and I'll present you the hero, the researcher that discovers something beautiful. I don't want to present myself. I should not present myself. I should present them, not me. I'm not the subject. If I'm the subject, I'm not a journalist. I'm the subject. We need yes, we need more youngsters who want to be journalists, but they are there. I work with them. I work with beautiful journalists, young journalists, as we speak. We don't need to make a campaign, go and be a journalist. They are coming to journalism naturally. They just feel it. They want to be there, and they are coming. I don't.
You can discuss it during the lunch. One more, yeah, of course. I see two.
Do you need the?
No.
Oh, I don't think young people want to be.
They want to be famous, which is natural.
No, but there are a lot of
it's okay.
colleagues of me that also want to survive and to pay their rent, and journalism is something that we are not talking about that, but
That's such a bad idea, to pay your rent from journalism.
that's the thing. So I think that it's not they don't want to be journalists, just they want to survive. So maybe YouTube pays more. I don't know.
Hello. I wanted to ask about what you said that we don't have a great mission, and journalists are not the ones that are going to change the world. And to a 20-year-old student, that hits a bit hard when he hears it. And I'm thinking, you said we just have to put a mirror on society and show to the society what is actually happening. But when we see things on the mirror that we don't like social inequality and stuff, and if we underline it, even that isn't it. We have many choices, many things to underline. The choice that we're going to make is in a way our opinion. So I mean, aren't we in a way obliged to make a choice, and that choice in a way mirrors our opinion and our stance at the end of the day?
You know that slogan for The Guardian, opinion is free, facts are sacred. I don't think you should mix them. There's a reason that serious newspapers have a page for opinion and the other pages are for information. If you mix that, you're gonna make your information and your opinion less credible, because there's a mix of emotion and data, and I'm sorry, for that you can go to your Facebook feed. Everybody's outraged for 2 hours because I said something on this stage. But 2 hours from now, nobody will remember that I said that, So, of course, if social inequality, it's your preoccupation, go and document it. Write a lot about it. But just don't push policy in the name of a party in your country. That's their job to do. And they have the resources, they have everybody knows them, and they have access to the media. They can do that, but it's not your call to do that. If you want to do that, go join an NGO. If you really want to do that, go join a party, go to the government. Eventually start a revolution. But as a journalist, no.
Let's do it. We run out of time, so I would like to thank so much these amazing cool guys and all of you.
And now we are going to see a case study. I will call Mr. Panayotou, the president of DCN Global, to call the fabulous... Come on, don't be shy.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now that we have back-to-back actually presentations, we might be tired, etc., but we will start actually this panel it's a kickstarting of the workshops that it will follow. The aim was actually to present a case, and it fits very well with the discussion that has been initiated from the previous panel regarding about journalism, influence, and how actually we make meaning out of the events. We will start from a video, and then I will just say a few words and present the work that we will follow up. If we can start with the video, thank you.
In the Israel-Hamas war, creating and polarizing In the Israel-Hamas war, creating and polarizing coverage that accurately portrays the conflict has been a big problem. This is a conflict where there's no story that a news organization can do about the conflict that is not going to make somebody angry.
So our case study, it was regarding the war between Israel and Hamas. And the research that we have produced, it has been actually, if we can go to the first presentation, the research that we actually have done with the team of 10 people that they will present their work was focused upon, no, the other one, the opening one that I have said. It was focused upon the coverage of US media regarding Israel and Hamas war. It was a work done on December 2023 at CSIS, at Center for Strategic and International Studies. We have been there and worked for 10 days with a team of the researchers that actually will present their work. This has been supported from Nyarchos Foundation, and the aim was actually to work upon a topic that at that time no one wanted to touch about. No one wanted to discuss about it. It was actually a topic that most of the people were avoiding to deal with it due to the proximity of the event, due to the fact that the public opinion has been overwhelmed by images of social media, by images actually that have dominated the public sphere. So what were the challenges that we had to face? The first and the major challenge was the importance that it was a very controversial research topic. We were still at a moment where the event was unfolding as it continues to be today. We have seen what have happened yesterday with a visit of Prime Minister Netanyahu in the States. Secondly, it created a lot of polarized debates. Debates that mainly have taken place in the social media sphere, but equally influenced a lot the discussion that was taking place into the media. So even the media, and this is highlights, and I think it is a very good case in relation with the previous discussion, their work has been affected based on this discussion. Thirdly, it was a challenge on how to address the grievances of each side. Fourthly, the researchers themselves, how they will get into this topic, understanding their own experiences, beliefs, and stance upon it. And the last thing, it was an important challenge to overcome the load of data based on mediums that they were not aware of. They were not Greek medium, but it was a US media. So what we did is we actually worked a lot on verifying data, because that was an important element and challenge in addressing a polarized and very emotional coverage of the topic. And we adopted a multi-phased approach because you need actually to produce stories that it will be fact-based, verified, but it will equally provide meaning. This is, I consider, it's the pathway for journalism. This is actually, it's the pathway of news information. So the importance, it was actually telling the story in the midst of a major crisis. And the second challenge was actually to create a positive influence during a polarized environment. A polarized environment that each side, it stopped listening to the other one. Now we'll pass the floor and I will invite the first group of students that they actually worked on producing the story. It is Giorgos Karagiorgos, Irini Peklari, and Clea Konstantinidou. Please take the floor. Thank you.
Great. Hello from me too. As Professor Panagiotou mentioned before, I'm Giorgos Karagiorgos. We are going to present you the story, but firstly I would like to begin with the common consensus. We have to admit that language has transformative and creational power to make and create from the very beginning worlds. And this does not apply only for Tolkien. It applies for journalists too. As the story team, we had to contemplate two very significant words, ethics and influence. We tried to encapsulate these ones in order to proceed with the rest of the research. If we elaborate these words in addition with what I mentioned before, we would have these very important quotes. The one is from George Orwell, and the other one is from Ludwig Wittgenstein, that says that the limits of my language are the limits of my world. And the other one is that if thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. Because at the very end, no matter what they say, language and words can change the world and how we perceive it. So, let's see some of the challenges. The very first one was the flood of information and the not solid literature. Also, we had to be under constant self-criticism for us because we were in ongoing conflict, and we had to surpass our tendencies for biased results and opinions. In addition, we had to identify the narratives. Something that now maybe seems like, okay, we know it, back then it wasn't just solid. We weren't sure what's going on and what the story would be, at least for the dominant stories. We had also to humanize the stories and foster understanding for both sides. Also, we had to deal with some ethical consideration and the logical ones, regarding the communities, regarding the way that we had to present. Our goal, to adopt a multifaceted approach to mitigate high conflict. We will talk later about what is high conflict. The main goal was to foster empathy, understanding, and develop a conflict-sensitive research based on a fact-based research. Let's see an example of a dilemma. I'm sorry, I believe we are watching a pre-updated version of it, but we can continue. Okay, let's see. Well, an Israeli spokesman of the military said that Israel has never and will never deliberately target journalists. But he cautioned that remaining in active combat zones carried risks. He called the accusation a blood libel, the historical malignancy. The Committee to Protect Journalists says that more journalists and media workers have been killed in the past 16 weeks than in a whole year of any other conflict from '92. Okay, let's see it now. Should we consider the statement of the military spokesman as a non-accurate, or consider it as an equivalent of this historical malignancy? How you can cross-check this? How you can handle this information? Here you can see what is a high conflict, and Hamas and the Israel war, it is one. The first is the self-sustaining nature. This can lead to a circle that where conflict persists regardless of the original issues. We see disregard for facts, binary thinking, us versus them, repetitive patterns, and violence as a self-purpose. We talked before about the narratives. we have the pro-Palestinian, the pro-Israeli, excuse me. That says that it is existential, the security for Israel. We have also the historical justification of Israel regarding the area after the World War II, and the moral superiority of the Israeli democracy over the Palestinian autocratic state with the power of Hamas. I would like now to pass the floor to my colleague, Irini Peklari, to present you and elaborate the Palestinian narrative.
Hi, I'm Irini Peklari, and I'm also part of the story team. The pro-Palestinian narrative common in global media and among younger demographics emphasize on human rights violations by highlighting the humanitarian impact on Palestinian civilians, and on resistance and liberation by portraying Palestinians' actions as a struggle for freedom and self-determination. So now we'll move on to disinformation and fake news. Our goal was to present the conflict in Gaza, ensuring both sides received equal representation, to foster dialogue and moderate extreme voices, hate speech, and polarization. We focused on disinformation, unlike misinformation, due to its power to shape narratives and distort facts, influencing public perception of wars, including the conflict in Gaza. Our source selection and cross-checking aimed to ensure reliability, accuracy, and authenticity, including perception from both sides, pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian, and was based on extensive research and content analysis across various media. Disinformation, the deliberate distortion of truth, differs from misinformation, which lacks ulterior motive. Also, disinformation, unlike misinformation, is often used strategically in wars. Fact-checking is essential for combating fake news and propaganda, especially in controversial and polarized topics like this. We ensured accuracy by cross-checking every piece of information we gathered from multiple sources of different directions and trends, and focus on disinformation and non-intentional errors like misinformation. So addressing disinformation could actually aid the peace process. Our findings confirm that both sides engage in disinformation, each with its own version of the truth, leading to extreme voices, hate speech, and polarization. The Gaza war, a conflict of narratives, highlights the critical role of information warfare and exemplifies the impact of narrative warfare where technological advancements amplify storytelling's impact, potentially influencing war outcomes more than military actions themselves. So now I'm passing the floor to Clea Constantinidou.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Clea. I'm also part of the story team. One of the subjects we investigated was the use of dehumanizing language. What we did find was that the perceptions of the conflict were highly the perceptions of the conflict show a polarizing climate, with hashtags like Hitler was right and death to Muslims appearing thousands of times online after the October 7th attack. The Institute of Strategic Dialogue noted a 50-fold increase in anti-Semitic YouTube comments post-October 8th. At the same time, after the Hamas attack, the anti-Muslim hate speech peaked online. Notably, 3/4 of Hebrew Islamophobic comments and the majority of anti-Semitic content can be found on X. The anti-defamation link found a lot more anti-Semitic content on X in comparison to Facebook, which also hosts a lot of hateful speech. We also have to take into consideration the demographics that dominate each social media platform. TikTok, which is used primarily by young people, hosts a lot more pro-Palestinian content than pro-Israeli one. For every pro-Israeli TikTok, there are 54 pro-Palestinian TikToks. Critics claim TikTok deliberately pushes pro-Palestinian content, which is an accusation that TikTok denies. According to the Time magazine, spending 30 minutes on TikTok every day increases the chances of the average US citizen to develop anti-Semitic views for about like 20%. Other platforms like X face criticism for slow responses to hateful speech, often attributed to staff cuts. Overall, the Palestinian side appears to dominate social media. In the US, 8,000 posts used the pro-Palestinian hashtag compared to 3,000 that used the pro-Israeli one from the period of 16 to October 3rd. This is it, and now I'm passing the floor to the data team.
Hi, I'm Eleni Handzi, and me, Spiros, and Kostas were part of the data visualization team with the task of gathering data and statistics on public opinions regarding the conflict between Hamas and Israel in Gaza, and what platforms people use in order to get their information for this topic. This assignment was particularly challenging for us due to the highly polarized nature of the subject. We had to verify our sources, relying exclusively on certified websites that provide data based on thorough research and polls. Initially, data analysis might seem like a straightforward task, but the reality is quite different. To achieve this, we had to visit a vast number of websites and meticulously fact-checked every little detail we found. And as we all understand, a particularly challenging aspect of our task was the need to manually research information and create diagrams from scratch. And here you see a diagram that we choose 4 different age groups. And we see that the first 2 at the top are quite similar. And the more different one is the 65 plus that gets their information from a more traditional networks and platforms like radio or traditional newspapers, in comparison to the top ones that gather information from social media and streaming services. And now I'm passing the floor to Spiros Panagiotou.
Hello everybody, thank you Eleni. So I'm Spiros, I was a member of the data visualization team, and so thank you. Okay, so after we gathered the data, we had to ensure that they were accurate, relevant to the topic, and representative. So we filtered those were the criteria. We filtered then the data based on the social media platforms the Americans use as main news sources, the trust levels on the social media, and the opinions of the Americans regarding the policy of the United States against the Israel-Hamas war. So we chose the specific data because they were valuable. They provide valuable context, and they uncovered unexpected trends and patterns. So in the next slide, we used for the to verify that the data were accurate. We used the online platform called Grand News, which offers a wide variety of news sources. In this diagram, we see the percentage of social media sites used as primary news sources, and the interesting thing is that the TikTok in just 3 years, it managed to double its numbers, and from 22% it went to 43%. So here we have 3 pie charts. In the first one is the opinions of the Americans in percentage. Their opinion about if the United States are doing enough to provide military aid to Israel, and if they are doing enough to provide humanitarian aid to the Palestine. In which the interesting fact is that we see a huge polarization in the in the ages between 18 to 34, in the humanitarian aid to Palestine. So that's it. I want to pass the floor to Konstantinos Tropezanidis.
Hi everyone. As Spiro said, my name is Konstantinos, and I'm also a member of the data team. Presenting complex stories in an easily digestible manner was our main challenge. This is where visualization comes into play. And in this case, we distilled complex data stories into visual representations that we tried to be more accessible and engaging. Our target was to engage our audience and create quality styled agency quality graphics that bring data to life. So how we measure that, our tools, through the Flourish platform. It was really useful for us, through Data Wrap, and of course through Microsoft Office Excel. Now, regarding the data selection process, you have, in order to facilitate a deeper understanding of this particular theme, we have to gather all the data necessary through various sources. So how we did that? By searching to different sites, different agencies. We have to gather all this data, we have to compare them to see some patterns. And of course, then we created some mini data sets in the Microsoft Office Excel in order to have a better view of all of them. Now, ensuring the accuracy of data, it was really a challenge for us. Through source evaluation and look for reputable, well-established sources. It's not an easy task. We managed to do that, and with cross-referencing, we have to compare all these data sources to find for what we wanted. The need for neutrality is really essential because we wanted to follow, and we followed a balanced framing, present the data in a way that avoids following any particular bias. And the question is there already bias? Maybe, but through data selection and diverse viewpoints, perspectives, and including all these expert viewpoints, diverse viewpoints, and acknowledging the limitation, I believe the result is really good. In conclusion, while data visualization is a really powerful tool, its effectiveness relies heavily on the accuracy and the quality of the data, the underlying data. So this is one of the last visualizations we created. Here you can see how Americans' trust in media has been, the progress of the American trust in media between 2000 and 2022. As you can see, the not at all trust in media has increased, it has really increased throughout the years. And in the second one, you can see how the partisan trust in media has, the progress of partisan trust in media between the same period, based on the political preference, Republican, Independent, and Democrat. And you can see also how these groups have the progress of these two groups. So yes, visualization can create empathy, can evoke a sense of connection. So it's really important. Thank you. Now I'll pass the floor to the audio-video team.
Hi, my name is Alex Papaxotopoulos. I'm a member of the audio team. So our task was to do a multimedia article, as legacy media like Economist, New York Times suggest that it is more appealing. Yes, and the audience prefers it a lot. So it was a difficult procedure because we had to put aside our preferences, our perspectives, and so on. Sorry, be more comfortable. And to present the topic in a neutral way. We conducted our interviews, we did our script, we wrote our script, and tried to balance the dynamic and present it equally both sides. We did the research to see the conflation. First, we defined the identities like Zionism, anti-Zionism, Semitism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and so on, Muslim, anti-Muslim. We found a big conflation and a big contribution of the US media in this conflation. So we want to see the perception and the perspective of the communities, of the Jewish and the Arab communities in the US, the impact on them. So we found that both communities shared same concerns about the conflation of identities and the impact on them, with different narratives. We try to present it in an equally way. And also, we found that US media were a little bit biased in the representation of these identities in the audience. I'm a little bit skeptical about the how can I say? This is not my. It is my opinion. We can discuss later. Feed for thought about when you this non-biased thing. I think we will discuss it later. It will be nice. And I will pass the floor to the video team. This is my opinion, not for the whole team and the CSIS. Dimitris Efleriadis, the floor is yours.
And last but hopefully not least, hi from the video team. I'm Dimitris, and this is. Say your name. And this is Penelope and George. And starting, okay. So first of all, as a video team, it was already a big responsibility because it is told by researchers that nowadays video is the medium with the most influence if you compare it to text that goes down, and if you also compare it to audio that gradually comes up, but still video has a big influence. And the first challenge we faced was that for the first time in our very short research career, we had to deal with coverage and human pain. And we had to go over videos and pictures and audios of actual war. And maybe to someone, maybe there is here in the crowd somebody that has worked as a journalist on war coverage, or somebody that has actually experienced personal experiences on war, so maybe it will sound a bit soft to them. But after 5-6 hours every day spending on watching these videos and this media, it was very important, you know, after at some point to go and ask each other, how do you feel? Is everything okay? Because it may affect you psychologically, and by affecting you psychologically, it may take away productivity or again fall in the trap of biases. And also, if for us it may get triggering sometimes, we should also keep in mind, have kept in mind that for other people that may have experienced such things, we should be very careful on what media we are going to choose to present at the final video, exactly not to trigger anybody that is going to watch it. And the second big challenge that we had to face was the fact that from one point as journalists, we have to address human suffering. We cannot treat humans as numbers. Journalism is not mathematics, but on the other side, because it's a very hard and already polarized topic, we should have taken care that what we are gonna get out of the video is not gonna increase that polarization through too much feeling, let's say. And third, about the focus choice. Okay, as a video team, we had to help the story. We had to choose a very specific focus. But on the other side, because we conducted interviews, as Penelope is going to say afterwards, when you conduct an interview is a very organic procedure. So yes, we went with a specific focus, but one of the interviewers, one of the people that we talked with may say something that gets our attention, and we have to make up a question right then, and then we get a bold statement, and then we are thinking, okay, should we include this? But then we have a time shortage, and again, we have our specific focus, so we needed to balance all these things going forward. And exactly because of that, it was very important to have a very specific organizing procedure, about which George is going to talk.
Hi, I'm George. I'm also a member of the video team. And now I'm going to talk to you about the procedure of the creation of the video. First, we did a little background check about who are the people that we were going to interview. And secondly, why are these people important for us to interview? After that, we did a little research on the themes of the video that we were going to create. And after that, we conducted the interview. We prepared the questions very carefully because we wanted to be objective and impartial. And also, we were very approachable in our way of communicating our questions to the interviewees because it is very sensitive information and we didn't want to create any misconceptions. After that, after we conducted the interview, we used the voiceover to make the interview into a script. And then we started pinpointing and importing key phrases and key content from the interview so as to put it in the video. Then we decided to place a focus on the need to show that that polarizing themes can work effectively and we should not be polarized. And after that, we tried to create a coherent presentation and structure of the video, which means that first, we showed how representatives from both Jewish and Arab communities feel about the topic, about the conflict. Then we showed how public affairs and foreign affairs consultants actually what they had to say about the conflict, the complexity of the conflict. And last but not least, we presented the way that journalists should, the way that a proper journalist should cover the story in an objective and impartial way. And now I give the floor to Mrs. Pinelope Stolikina.
Thank you, George. So as my colleague said, we were the video team and we had to focus on a specific theme. As you might have seen, the title of the video was In Pursuit of Objectivity. So our research focused on American media coverage and the perspective of the evolved communities. Gaza may be a hemisphere away from the US, so the audience's stance is greatly influenced by the media. So eventually another question that arose was, what is the role of the journalists in such a crisis? So our interviewee pool was created by the contribution of the CSIS and our professor, Mr. Nikos Panagiotou, and it contained people from different professional fields, and of course the representatives from the communities, both necessary in making moderated and inclusive content. So as you can see, this is the humanitarian and the journalistic experts. Michelle Strack and Vivian Sheila helped us present the humanitarian aspect of the conflict, emphasizing on the people of the story and how the conflict is affecting them on a more personal level. What we kept from Tom Hamburger, which was the investigative journalist with 30 years of experience, and if I remember correctly, it was also a war correspondent, was the importance of our journalistic identity, and that includes maintaining our neutrality and learning how to maneuver in such an emotionally charged topic. Our distinguished guests were the representatives of the American, Arab, and Jewish community, which gave us the perspective on how they were treated after the 7th of October attack by the media and the society. Because if anybody remembers, there were enough attacks after the news break-in, and because they were affected, the society, the American society was affected by how the American media covered about that. We had hate speech and hate acts towards these communities. To say my personal view, I think that what challenged us, as also Dimitri said, was mostly the necessity to prevent ourselves from getting involved and carried away by personal beliefs and get affected by the emotionally charged material of the interviews, and creating a video that emphasizes on the people and the crucial role that journalists can play in producing unpolarized and fact-based content. Also, one thing that I wanted to add on what Dimitri said was to the importance of finding the right questions. We had time shortage, so we had to be certain and punctual to our questions so we could get punctual answers as well. To conclude, It was a very challenging project, as you might think. So dealing with such a polarized, entirely coveted event, we believe we had achieved our goal to promote right communication of the conflict and emphasizing on the story and the protagonists. So thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, we can watch the video, but there is a question. Jill, I think you want to ask.
Thank you. So my questions are definitional. I'm interested in knowing how the team defined pro-Israeli versus pro-Palestinian narratives and also distinguished between anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist or pro-Semitic or pro-Zionist. The story is polarized, but it's also complex in that the U.S., for example, media has covered the conflict more than one way. The U.S. being, of course, a big military supporter and political supporter of Israel, but also the largest funder to UNRWA and having given a lot of humanitarian aid. So I'm interested in knowing how the research team parsed out some of that complexity. Thanks.
Okay, so regarding the narratives, we had to extract the main meaning at the very beginnings of the war and track the directions of it. So yeah, we had to deal also with anti-Zionist and anti-Muslim rhetoric. But as we said before, this was the main key points of its narrative. So how you can extract it? I mean, in such polarized area and subject, you can just track, extract, and present. You have to narrow it down and leave things aside. That's it. I mean, it was just the first month of the conflict. Think that already we have, since the attack of Hamas, how many months? At the first month of it, I'm not sure that we could be such to do such a work like you described.
Okay. I'm interested how you work on those 10 days. You went camping somewhere. There was like how you focus on this. How is this process?
We went to Washington. We were in Washington, D.C. in the central offices of CSIS. And we stayed inside the offices for many hours. So in a way, when I think about these days, it was from other influences maybe, and from either from Greece or from our colleagues, we didn't have time to have many contacts. So in that way, we were a bit, not in quarantine, but we were so much focused that for these days, it was only this. And yeah, we stayed in a hotel near the headquarters. We went to the headquarters, worked from morning to night. So that was
not inside tents or sleeping bags? No, okay.
Hi, I had more of a comment than a question, which was always going to come up at some point. I always say that as a laugh. I just wanted to say to you all, this is a really, really tough topic. It's very sensitive. I think you should all be so proud of yourselves for taking it on and watching that kind of footage, which can be horrific. And I'm so pleased to see you've all been checking in on each other and caring about each other's welfare. So I just wanted to say I'm incredibly impressed with what you've done, and you should be really proud of yourselves.
Okay, let me just correspond to some of the questions asked. It was a very hard task, and I'm really proud and thank you very much, Austin, for bringing that for two main obvious reasons. When we, before going to Washington, we had a very intense discussion whether or not, you know, it was October 7th, the massacre has taken place, and then we decided to go on with the topic. There was a huge influence already due to the social media. So the task was actually to counteract all this influence that still dominates each of us bubble. The second one, it was a very sensitive topic, and it still is, that creates a lot of animosity, polarization, etc. Thirdly, we had actually to build upon on definitions, how we define and how we categorize that. It was Jill actually question. So we had actually to go through a pile of data that it will be based both on data that it will be recorded and be brought from sources like whom the audience trusts more and why they turn to each other. We have seen, and this is how we gathered data, example, how TikTok, how X, etc. was covering the topic. If I can go back on the research findings, you can see that 300 almost. There was an increase in anti-Semitic hashtags, etc. This is how we actually categorized it. Plus, we had actually to take into account that there were not so many people willing to talk about the topic. They were avoiding the topic for obvious reasons. So you had actually a team of young people that had to work on a topic that it had all these restrictions, might say, or issues to address. If we can watch now the video that represents some of the work that has been done. Thank you.
In the Israel-Hamas war, creating and polarizing coverage that accurately the conflict has been a big problem. This is a conflict where there's no story that a news organization can do about the conflict that is not going to make somebody angry. What do representatives of the American Jewish and Arab communities in the United States see when they look at coverage of the conflict?
The immediate aftermath of the attack on October 7th, there was a groundswell of support for Israel, but that slowly began to recede over the ensuing weeks.
The mainstream media coverage is tilted heavily towards a pro-Israel side. We see that across all networks, from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and others.
Opinions about the coverage may differ, even within communities heavily invested in either side of the conflict in Gaza.
It could also be tempting in the media coverage of this conflict to cast one particular group with an opinion on an entire issue. In the US, we have complex communities that have a nuanced array of views.
But if it is impossible for both sides to agree on what objective coverage looks like, what is the role of a journalist in such a polarized conflict?
Often opposing sides have looked at the same fact base and draw completely different conclusions.
The role of the journalist is to bear witness and to show the facts on the ground, so that the public can then make their own conclusions. You just have to keep trying to present every angle and bear witness and to provide the closest, get as close as you can to the truth in a situation where truth is very elusive. As the conflict and polarizing coverage continue, what can journalists do to mitigate these issues?
In order to regain people's trust, there are steps I believe news organizations need to take and can take. Reaching out to seemingly warring camps, people of different ideas and perspectives, and report in depth on their reality, on how they see the current situation. The idea would be to develop an understanding and to report with empathy. The opinions, the motivation, the grievances of both sides can be heard.
Coverage of this conflict has had real ramifications for people and communities connected to it. Journalism can take steps to partner with those affected by this conflict to create even more ethical, balanced, and objective objective reporting in the future.
Thank you. That was it. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause, please. Can I just say, the students that were on stage, I hope you are insanely proud of yourselves. I cannot put it in, I felt chills. I kept saying to Mariana, oh my gosh, look at them, our leaders. Like, I think it's so exciting because I hope you remembered each and every face that was up here. Because I have a feeling, give them 5-10 years and you guys are going so far. And I know we've already said we're so proud of you, but we're so really, 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 really proud of you. Like, I feel like a mom. Nikos, I know you're proud. Yeah, you're very proud, so well done. Oh, that's it?
Yep. I have a problem with my mic. I'm feeling like a mom too, so.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Sounds good. Okay.
Great. Now, before we go to the lunch break, I want everyone to stand up. Okay? Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. And I have a surprise, so I will go back in the curtain like a legit magician.
Yes.
And I will come back, hopefully, without a bunny. And
Okay. All right. So I would like to ask 4 people to join us on stage. Rebecca, where you at, girl? Where is Rebecca? Don't run away. Okay. All right. There we are. Okay. So Rebecca, Dr. Kamau, Sam. I hope I'm saying your name right. Raris. Yes. And Diana. No, on side of the top of the stage. Like where we can see you.
we don't have candles because of safety. Happy birthday, everyone.
Happy birthday. Hey, look at that.
And we want at least a sentence from each.
We can bring the volume down. We can't hear our softer speaking.
I'm so grateful for being here, especially with my colleagues, and it's been amazing these last few days.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that I share, a close birthday with such great people. And now I have a new friend of birthday, so that's great. Yeah, and thank you.
That was quite unexpected. But I'm really grateful for this gesture. Really feels special, like I came to Tallinn to celebrate my birthday. Thank you so much, and I'm glad to share the birthday week with these lovely people.
So I want to thank my mother and my father because they planned it very well. And it's not the first time I celebrate my birthday with DCN. It was 2 years ago in Bulgaria. So I'm very curious where we decide to be next year or 2 years from now. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. There's another birthday boy? How did you get out of our radar? George! Where are you, George? George! Should I say it nicely? George.
The birthday, George.
Birthday,
we
George.
Want the birthday, George.
If it's your
On
birthday
stage.
and your name is George, if your birthday was yesterday, today, it's not.
Bring us your ID and come. If it's not, you can pretend. Come.
We can, yeah. Okay, George, we love you anyway.
We love
So
you.
round of applause for George, please.
This was an example of misinformation, okay?
So in my culture, we ululate. I don't know if you know what ululating is. I'm not gonna do it with the mic because I'm gonna hurt your ears. So I'll ululate for your birthday. So happy birthday to you. So we're gonna enjoy some cake, and we're gonna ask you all to head on to lunch. It's time to eat. It's that good time to eat, to network, to connect. And when we come back, actually maybe I should tell you now because the workshops are in different spaces. So it's also on the group. Please, if you are, please double check the group actually. So there's 2 workshops upstairs.